All right, let's get this started. Hopefully we have enough time for this. I only have like 4 hours. But I think we can get through it. I think this is the debates. I don't know. We'll find out. I'll do as much as I can. Anyway, I guess Aiden Ross and Sneeko hosted a debate between Fuentes and this Nick kid. And my understanding is he's this Dean guy. Did I say this Nick kid or Dean? Whatever. This guy's name is Dean. He was on that one, whatever it's called. He was on the Jubilee video. I heard good things. Can't really react to it because Jubilee is very aggressive against reaction content now, even though they begged for it a while back. But that's neither here nor there. So sure, man. Let's go. Let's check it out.
Take it away, Nick. You got it first.
Hang on. What's else?
Okay. I guess while he's figuring that out, I'll go ahead and give an introduction of myself to everyone watching. I am Dean Withers. I am a 20-year-old
Mr. Withers,
liberal. I really enjoy I enjoy politics. I enjoy debate.
I don't understand how you can enjoy politics. You know what I mean? But okay.
And I started streaming on TikTok about a year and a half ago, yabbing my mouth to maybe a crowd of 30 people. And here we.
Does this guy have like a YouTube channel? Because TikTok's cool and all, but I feel like TikTok's not a great primary platform. But
we are a year and a half later on a debate stage on Aiden Ross's stream.
What is his TikTok called? It's Dean?
But then this will be...
All right,
So,
thank you, Dean.
It's going to be a fun night, guys.
Thank you very much. It is going to be a fun one.
Is this him? Is this the same guy? It looks similar. He's pretty cut. He's pretty yoked if this is him. Is this him? Oh, is this him? Yeah, I guess it is.
We're just waiting for Nick, and then we'll let
Okay.
Nick introduce himself, and then...
Then we gotta agree on topics and terms and everything.
No, they already both agreed on the topics.
They have?
Yeah, there's 4 good
Does
topics.
he have a YouTube?
Maybe 2 to 5 minute intro, depending what they agree on, and then
I agree.
Oh, no.
and then we'll do free flowing.
He should do something for this.
And if they interrupt each other, then we can go to 90-second, 2-minute back and forth.
Correct. And then we have the ability to server mute as well.
Oh, yeah, guys, if you want to like formalize this, go for it. Honestly, I was coming in here expecting a back and forth conversation.
Well, it is. No, for sure.
But I'm saying, if it
down with
becomes too much
formalization.
interruption, then we'll do time back and forth.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll figure it out.
We don't want to
This website's terrible on its interface.
hear you guys talking over each other the whole time.
Hey, hey, Nick, if you can hear...
He should just put his lives up on YouTube or something, you know? Just get himself out there on YouTube. I mean, I don't know. I just come from... I'm a little more jaded because TikTok has like a pretty aggressive soft cap financially, which I feel like is pretty rough. But then again, if he's streaming, you don't really have to worry about that soft cap because the soft cap is usually video-wise. So, but, you know, I just think it's good to branch out onto like YouTube. I feel like it's a better consistent platform.
Hear me? I know how to fix your issue, bro.
Okay, what's up?
So, are you using OBS Studio?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to go ahead and start a virtual cam. You'll see that. And what that'll do is
I'm gonna double speed this until we
you can
get...
basically use your webcam at the same time as using it on your stream. So if you use Discord and the stream, make sure your virtual camera is selected to your video source that you're using on OBS.
Okay, let me see.
I'm surprised you're not on OBS. I'm kidding.
Hang on, let me see. Yeah, no, I used to be. I don't know. I got it for sure now.
No way. That's insane.
What is this? This is the... Yeah, so why isn't this working? Okay.
So you know what you got to do? Go to the camera icon and click the little down arrow.
Jewish tech support.
Come on, man.
That's not even
Source. Oh, okay. Hang on. I think I got it. Okay, I think I got it. Sorry, guys.
No, dude, you're good. Take your time.
There we go. Okay,
All right,
we're good
can you
now.
see?
Yes, we're good. Okay, now let me do this, like this. Okay, that wasn't too hard.
All right.
All right.
Nick, let's give it a little introduction. I would like you to give a little introduction and tell us, the new viewers and stuff, who you are, what you do, talk a little about yourself, and yeah, go ahead.
Sure, yeah, well, my name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. I'm a live streamer. I've been doing a show called America First for 8 years, almost 8 years.
He's like a legitimate racist and anti-Semitic person who thinks that my people rule the world and also think that black people are genetically inferior. And sleeping with them is the same as sleeping with a dog, which is obviously wrong. But that's his take. This is his unironic take. It's actually insane. It's weird for him to be white supremacist too, since he is Hispanic. But that's neither here nor there, huh?
Years now. I'm 26, from Chicago. I'm a reactionary.
He also, unironically, I think loves femboy stuff, which is interesting. Yeah.
Trump supporter. Well, I was a Trump supporter, not so much anymore. But I'll be defending Trump. That's fine from debate point of view. And yeah, so that's me. So I'm excited to be here. It's going to be good.
Sweet. Okay. Well, the first topic, as everyone knows, I told the chat as well, is who is the better presidential candidate?
It's obviously not Trump, unfortunately. That's literally it. He tried to overthrow the government. I don't know what else to say. Like it's the unfortunate reality that he just didn't take the L. He tried to push in faulty electors. January 6th happened. He did nothing to stop it. He didn't say anything on Twitter for 3 hours as they were attacking the Capitol. Police officers getting PTSD from it. That's it. He tried to put 7 faulty electors in. Pence didn't take it. That's why Pence isn't running with him anymore, because he didn't, Pence didn't play ball with Pence trying to, or Pence didn't play ball with Trump trying to overthrow the government. And that's just kind of where we're at, man. He's a bad candidate. He just is. He's lying about the relief right now for the hurricanes going on, saying that like, oh, Biden won't give them relief, blah blah blah. Even though every governor has like publicly come out and been like, oh, we really appreciate the relief. Biden said we can get as much as we want, but right now we're content with what we have, and we'll see where it goes. So it's he's just kind of a lying person. And I'm not saying Kamala's amazing, but like, I'd rather have Kamala than Trump, because he's just not good. He's the antithesis of our democracy. So,
Dean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously, I think that the better presidential candidate is Kamala Harris. But I just wanted to clarify with Nick. You said that you're not much of a Trump supporter. So, are you voting for Trump?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to vote for him.
Who are you
who are you voting for then? Also, is it loud enough on the stream?
voting for?
I'm not voting.
Oh, okay. Holy shit. Well, I mean, the reason I chose that topic was because, I thought that you were voting for Trump. I don't really see much like use in it if you're not voting for Trump. I mean,
well, it's worthwhile because I'll argue that people should. I'll just argue that Trump is better than I think that.
So then why wouldn't you vote Trump if you think he's better? I don't understand that logic.
Trump would be a better president, but I'm not going to vote for him.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So we can argue that.
Yeah, I guess we'll start there. I disagree. And one of the main reasons why I disagree, we could come out of the gate swinging, is this economic policy. I think that it's pretty clear, and we could probably both agree on this, that the average American should be doing better than they are today, and they
Sure, I mean, yeah, I agree with that.
should not be doing worse than they are today. Donald Trump's proposed economic policy will make the average American worse off with his tariffs, and then his TCJA for another 10 years disproportionately benefits rich people. It will also just add reckless spending to our debt. It'll inflate it even more than it is today. I think there's an estimate from the CBO putting that right at $5.8 trillion. He has no fucking plan how he's going to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, the last time he did tax cuts, he had no plan on paying for it either. He just decided to do tax cuts that primarily benefited the rich, and he never really had a plan to actually, pay for them. That's why our deficit inflated pre-COVID by $350 billion per year. So
when we look over at Kamala Harris, okay, her proposed tax policy so far is $2.4 trillion. She knows exactly how she's going to pay for it, and they're designed for 100 million American workers in the low and the middle class, and it's going to make them better off. Donald Trump's going to make them worse off. Argument's clear.
I will say, just when it comes to tariffs, I understand Trump's idea of like kind of bullying China a little bit economically. Hopefully, we can get a little bit more, creating things back at home, which would give more American jobs. But it does obviously cost the consumer, the taxpayer, more money. It's going to cost, or rather, it costs people more money because the products are going to be more expensive because there's going to be tariffs on cheaper goods. I mean, the Chinese people in China, rather, they kind of just throw, they don't have as good of worker rights, so they get paid quite a bit under what they should. But like that is unfortunately good for Americans. So, yeah. I just don't really like that seems to be the majority of his policy. When it comes to everything, he's just like, yeah, we're going to do this and it's going to fix all of our problems. I watched Vance and Waltz talk about this, and it's like, not really. It's not going to fix all of our problems magically. It needs to be more robust. The entire Trump's entire plan seems to be centralized around tariffs on Chinese goods or some imports, and then also dealing with the border, and that'll fix all our problems. We should deal with the border, but that's not going to fix all of our problems. It doesn't fix our economic problems and all that. They think that the majority of the housing crisis is because of illegal immigrants. It's not. I'm sure it's a factor, but most of it is because of rich people basically buying up houses and inflating the market. So yeah.
Okay, that's it. It's just the economic proposals. That's all you got.
We can start there.
Okay.
Sure, we can reference other things too. I didn't want to just throw everything at you at once. We can talk about multiple things.
Yeah, well, let me address all that. I mean, so with regard to the tariffs, J.D. Vance pointed this out. The Biden administration continued many of the Trump era tariffs. So that's kind of a moot point. I mean, I don't know if Kamala's going to. Of course he did. Of course he continued.
No, they continued the tariffs,
on
but it's not a moot point. I disagree with the Biden-Harris administration because they continued the tariffs on China. But what Donald Trump is proposing today is a 10 to 20% flat tariff on all goods imported into the country. Right? I could say that any and all tariffs are bad, right? But a 10 to 20% flat tariff on all goods is worse than tariffs on goods imported from China.
I don't think
tariffs aren't necessarily bad. It depends on what the point of the tariff is. I mean, if the point of the tariff is to say like, hey, we want to kind of press another country economically to get them to play ball with us more. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the tariff in that point.
The flat tariff, is that actually the policy? I don't believe that's right.
It is, right? I think that J.D. Vance was talking about this last time. I think you could reference his own policy. He's talked about it multiple times in the past. If you don't think this is...
It's only on certain countries. There would be no 15... That doesn't make any sense. There'd be no 15 to 20% tariff. But even if that were the case, fine. Let's say for the sake of argument that's true, because I don't know the Trump policy. They keep saying that Trump is going to put in place, they're calling it a consumption tax. A consumption tax is value-added tax. They're saying it's going to be like a sales tax.
A value-added tax is a flat tax, just to be clear. Just so you guys are clear, a value-added tax is a flat tax. The point of a value-added tax specifically, though, is that it taxes in a way, and I don't understand the specifics, but it taxes in a way that makes it difficult for companies like Amazon to dodge their taxes. That's the shorthand of it. So that's kind of the benefit of it using a VAT tax over a regular flat tax. I think it taxes different things in the chain differently. I don't understand the specifics, but that is the point of it.
And that's the idea that the taxation occurs at the point of a sale of goods. And that's actually a real proposal, but that's different than a tariff because, and here's the difference. When you put a tariff on goods and services, to call that a consumption tax is to imply that the consumer will bear the full cost of the tariff.
Well, they will, because it'll increase the price of the good regardless. If you're increasing the price of the good, it's going to be passed on to the consumer. So I don't know what he's talking about.
And that's not necessarily true.
That is pretty much always true.
Trump had a lot of tariffs in his first term, and the price of goods did not significantly increase in spite of the tariffs. Everybody says that it would only...
Depends on where you put the tariff in or what you put them onto. It's always going to like boost the price of goods or decentivize you from buying a cheaper good and buying a less expensive good.
Be the case if the full cost of the tariff was passed down to the consumer, but that flies in the face of the fact that foreign corporations will bear the cost of the tariff.
Yes, and then they pass that. I don't understand. Like, does he just not understand like the basics of economics, or
almost all of it, and certainly not all of it is passed down to the consumers.
But that's I don't really understand. If you tax somebody more, like if you tax a product more, the consumer is going to ultimately pay for it. What is he talking about?
Just not true. That's one. Two, with regard to deficits.
Does he think this, or is he just like? Is this just? I don't understand. I really don't get it. I don't understand this.
Spending tax policy. I mean, I know you're a young guy and everything, but like Republicans.
You are also a young guy, so but okay.
And Democrats, there's a bipartisan consensus on spending. Let's just talk about spending. Most of the spending on an annual basis is not even discretionary. Okay, there's mandatory spending and there's discretionary spending. Mandatory spending means you can't change it. Okay, the executive doesn't change it, Congress can barely change it, and that is liabilities like Social Security, Medicare. It's baked into the cake. It's a vast majority of it. And who is going to cut entitlements? Nobody. Republicans aren't proposing to cut entitlements.
They have been historically, but okay.
Although they'd be more willing to than Democrats. Democrats are certainly not touching entitlements. Biden always attacks Republicans in a State of the Union, saying they're trying to touch Social Security.
Well, I'm pretty sure under Trump they did try to touch Social Security. They tried to like gut it. What is he talking about?
He thinks driving the deficit of the debt. It's Social Security and Medicare. It's unfunded liabilities. In terms of military spending has gone up every year under the Biden administration. It's like $850 billion per year. That's the largest item in the discretionary budget. So mandatory spending. Has it
gone up under? I mean, it makes sense that it would go up under Biden because we are engaged into, well, let's just call it to some extent like almost like a proxy war. But
is going to go up in perpetuity under Democrats and Republicans. Discretionary spending is going to go up because military is by far and away the biggest component of that, and Biden spends more. And he spends more on military appropriations because of all the foreign aid. We gave 170.
Well, yeah, it's because two of our allies are under attack. So
$5 billion to Ukraine. We gave $27 billion to Israel, another $8 billion to Israel last week, $7 billion to Taiwan, $1.3 billion to Egypt. That's in addition to the $850 billion per year, which that's like the highest ever under Biden. So, spending's not coming down under anybody.
Well, that's just wrong. I'm sorry for interrupting you. You can
What's
reference
wrong?
You're saying that spending didn't go down under Biden and Harris compared to Trump. You could reference the committee.
I didn't say that.
Budget. You said that spending wasn't going down under anyone, right? We can make a comparative analysis between the two last terms, and we could show how it's gone down. A committee for a responsible federal budget indicated that Donald Trump signed $8.7 trillion of debt into law. Meanwhile, Biden and Harris only signed in 4.6. I mean, we could break that down into COVID and non-COVID. Like for instance, Trump signed $4.8 trillion of non-COVID related expenditures into law. Meanwhile, Biden only signed in $2.2 trillion. But the first point that you made, I wanted to touch on that. You were talking about the tariffs, right? You just kind of related it back to how like the Kamala Harris campaign is calling it, like a sales tax, and then that's kind of all you said. Yeah, I don't really care what they're calling it. I agree. That's just a term that they use to convince the average American that doesn't know much about what a tariff is, that it's really bad. But at the end of the day, the impact of the tariff, right, still does serve as a detriment to the consumer. And you were very careful with your words here, because you told me that tax, right, that tariff isn't fully paid by the consumer, implicitly kind of conceding there that some of it is, right? And that's what I'm talking about. That is a tax that in some sorts is passed off to the consumer. We could also consider other.
Well, yeah, of course. Again, like if you're going to tax a company greater, they're typically going to pass off that increase to the consumer. So
attributes such as the idea when we reduce the overall supply of a good with a constant demand, the price will go up. That's basic macroeconomics. That's going to happen when we reduce the amount of imported goods without increasing the amount of like supply manufactured here at home in the U.S. At the end of the day, tariffs are bad. This is a unilateral agreed upon.
Again, not necessarily tariffs aren't necessarily bad. They might be bad for the economy or people. It depends on what the goal of the tariff is. If it's to like bully another country into that could be potentially good. But
since Republicans and Democrats alike, you go to any economist will tell you this unless they don't have the necessary qualifications to be, and that's a fact. And then when we kind of consider these tariffs alongside his policy disproportionately benefiting the rich man and seemingly at the expense of the poor man with these tariffs, it becomes quite clear. If we want to serve to the average American in their best interests, we need to be voting for Kamala Harris because her policy does exactly that. I mean, 83% of the tax cuts in the TCJA. Not at all. 83% of the tax cuts in the TCJA for the last 7 years went to the top 1%. I mean, is that just rhetoric?
Okay, is it my turn?
I thank you for the $20 from Jackie Love. What's up, big man? What's going on? How's it going?
Okay, so with regard to tariffs, yes, some of the cost is passed down to the consumer.
All of the costs is. I don't know what else to tell you. The only argument you might have is it might not increase things as much as you'd think. Like, let's say a Chinese product is $10 and then an American product is $12. Increasing a 20% tariff onto that $10 good is going to cause that product to cost $12. So now, okay, let's use it better. It's the Chinese product is $10, the American product is $11. You put a 20% tariff on the Chinese product, it's now $12. So you only went up $1 because now you're going to buy the American good instead. That's a little more expensive, but still cheaper than the tariff. So I mean, I guess that's where you would go with that. Sure. So, okay.
but it's marginal. And the point of tariffs is to reshore manufacturing. I'll give you a perfect example. China has now become the largest manufacturer of electric cars. Huge industry. You could buy an electric car in China for $10,000. Tesla does
Yeah, but who wants that? Those things are fucking small, cheap pieces of shit.
not cost $10,000. If we allow China to dump their electric cars in America, there goes Tesla. There goes our American electric
Well, I don't really care about Tesla, so.
car manufacturing. It's a national security problem. There's a lot of problems. You have
I mean, that is a good argument. It could be a national security problem, potentially.
to put tariffs on the cars. Probably China will send them here regardless because they're still so cheap. And yeah, they're not going to be $10,000, but there's a value in making cars in America. There's a value, and by the way, because then Americans get those jobs. So, you know, you could say that free trade creates the lowest costs, but the only reason it creates the lowest costs.
One of the problems too, though, is like you could put a tariff on a Chinese good, but then what happens is that, like, again, like you can't really. What do we do about all the drastic increase in automation, which is like a legitimate thing that is happening? When you have like a increase, we're going to turn to automation anyway to prevent us from having to spend money on giving America. You know what I mean? To giving Americans money. A lot of rich people will say, okay, let's do automation because it's cheaper. We don't have to give the benefits. Let's just invest in like better automation for a particular thing. So that is another problem too. It doesn't necessarily always create an American job because we might automate the issue away anyway.
Just because they can undercut us with wages and with their lower standard of living and monetary policy that they have in their own country. So tariffs are essential for a holistic understanding of the economy. The increase in prices is marginal. It's not significant. And when you call it a consumer tax or a sales tax, you know, that does matter because they're conflating that with a VAT tax. That's
It is effectively a tax on consumers. So
very different. The 15, 20% to the, and I don't know that they're doing it on every country, so I'll take your word for it. It's not going to be passed down to consumers beyond a marginal amount. That's one. In terms of, you said, oh,
I
well,
would say all of it's going to be passed down to consumers. It's like, but okay.
Trump had more deficit spending. Almost all of that is accounted for by the pandemic. Almost all of it. You say,
No, it's not. Pre-COVID, he increased the annual federal deficit by $350 billion. So, like, that's just not true. That's why his economic policies were so bad. It was massive tax cuts that, like, we could never pay for. That's why I always say it was comparable to going to the bank, taking out $100,000 and saying you just made $100,000, even though you're going to have to pay interest on that. So,
well, the Trump had a $8 trillion deficit. That was because of the COVID stimulus.
nope, it was not.
PPP.
Some of it was, but he increased the deficit pre-COVID. So
The
Not
cash
almost all,
payments,
half of it.
almost all of it. And here's the
No,
point.
go to CRDF.
Hang on.
Look at it.
Well, hang on. I'll let you finish.
Yes, sir.
You
No,
said,
go ahead.
so the structural problems with deficit spending, they're there under Trump. They're there under Harris. And by the way, Republicans tried to get limitations on the deficit. That's what they got elected on. Republicans regained control of Congress in 22, saying they limit the deficit. They negotiated it
they never do. The deficit always goes up under every Republican president.
over the debt ceiling negotiations last year. They negotiated it over military appropriations last year with the October 1st deadline. Tried to negotiate it this year. Democrats wouldn't come to the table on deficit reduction. Either way, like the deficit is baked into the cake.
I think it's because they wanted to cut Social Security with their deficit reduction. So
Okay, the debt is $30 trillion. Interest rates are high. Interest to service the debt is going up. Neither Harris or Trump is meaningfully going to reduce the debt or the deficit. So it's just
no, well, I mean, you have a higher chance with Kamala Harris doing that because, again, I think Joe Biden was like the first Democratic president in a while to not actually decrease the deficit. Obama drastically decreased the deficit. It was like $1.2 trillion when he first took office, down to $650 billion. So yeah,
moot. Without bringing down Social Security and Medicare, just forget about it. Without bringing down the military, it's not going to happen. You know, and there are these extraordinary measures like COVID and Ukraine war. It's really neither here nor there. Also, I mean, I think deficit is really besides the point. If you want to get further into
First
the
time I've
deficit,
heard a
though,
Republican say that, by the way.
yeah, well, I'm not a normal Republican. I'm not like a fiscal conservative. Okay, look,
Do you mind if I
the
respond to the points you made
deficit.
so far?
What's that?
Do you mind if I respond to the points you made
I don't think any conservatives are fiscally conservative. So
so far?
Yeah, go ahead.
What you said.
Sure.
So, like, first of all, you
Wait,
said
real quick, Dean, I'm not cutting you off. Guys, we just have 10 minutes on this topic. Just 10 more minutes on this topic. Go ahead.
Okay.
I forgot that fucking Aiden Ross sneak over there.
Okay, right. So the first claim that you made, that the tariff isn't passed off to the consumer, yeah, that's wrong. Because what would the point of the tariff be then? Okay, we see an increase in domestic production given tariffs because that is passed off to the consumer. Would you agree there?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so
The
then why
point-
do we
the
see
point
an
of the
increase in
tariff-
domestic production given tariffs?
Because when you produce something in China, you can make it for cheaper, so your margin is bigger, so you can undercut
Oh, you make it more
prices.
expensive for the consumer at the grocery store by imposing those tariffs, right? And then
Not
secondly, I
necessarily.
agree with you.
Again,
Okay.
Yes, necessary. That's the whole point, is to make it more expensive so Americans don't choose that item. I mean, I'm assuming he's just being like intentionally stupid to pretend like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
because the China will pay the tariff to get their goods to the market because
Yes, and then they have to increase the price of their good.
they
But
need
then why
access
won't
to
we
the
buy
market.
it? But then why won't we buy it? Because it costs more money, right? And that's
Yeah,
my whole
well,
argument, is that tariffs cause the end consumer to pay more at the grocery store, to pay more at Best Buy, to pay more at the car dealership.
Do you know what a
There's
tariff
another point
is?
that you brought up there. It's a tax on an import.
Yeah, it's a tax on a good or service that comes into the country. It's not that complicated.
And there's another point that you brought up there about how we want to like spur domestic production of goods. I don't disagree. I absolutely agree. We should have a more industrialized economy where we produce goods here in America. We just disagree on how we get there, right?
How do we get there without tariffs?
I mean, a tariff is an idea of how to get there.
Yeah, sure. Right, by driving further competition through the natural market. We do that via investment.
What's
we do
the
that by
natural market?
We do that by investing in money. Oh, sorry, investing in money. That was crazy. Investing in U.S. producers of goods, like the Chips and Science Act under Biden and Harris administration, that invested billions of dollars into U.S. chip producers to.
So, I mean, sure. What he's saying is give subsidies to companies so that their products will be cheaper. That's a way to go. Or you could just make the enemy's products more expensive, the other country's product more expensive. I mean, these are just the same things. They're just different. The same things, but different. Like, they're effectively the same thing, but okay.
Further drive competition, right, with those imported goods, just via innovation in the product, right? And the fact that you as a conservative are sitting here telling me that we need a government to impose a regulation on the free market by tariffing those goods that are being imported to our country, it's just new. You know what I mean? Right?
Well, it may be new to you because like your only context of Republican is like Reagan. But if you go back to Henry Clay and Friedrich List and the American system, Alexander Hamilton, the country was basically funded by tariffs until we had an income tax.
Yeah, do you know why?
We only had an income tax 100 years ago. Before that, the federal government made its money from tariffs.
Yeah,
by
but
the way,
you know why?
it's basic mercantilism because we want to make the stuff. And by the way, when you say, well, we're just going to invest, it doesn't work. China's dollar goes 3 times as far because the standard of living is lower. They're rich in raw materials. They have an endless supply of labor, cheap labor. The idea you're going to chips and sciences your way out of China having systemic advantages, economic factors of production like labor. They have 1.5 billion people. You're not going to pass a bill that's going to change those fundamental imbalances in the economy. We have capital, we have tech, we have entrepreneurship, they have labor. Okay, it's the same reason, hang on, and it's the same reason why we're even, when we try to, they call it friend shoring, we're gonna take our factories from China and give them to our allies like Philippines, it's still going to China because they have all the cheap labor. You just can't compete with that. You can't compete with the fact that they make everything, they have all the people. So you agree that we should reindustrialize. You literally cannot do that unless you protect industry. And by the way, China has tariffs too. All countries have tariffs. We're the country that doesn't have tariffs. They're eating our lunch as a result. So, that's just not true. What you're saying isn't true.
No, Donald Trump's taken away the average American's lunch as a result. Like, once again, we've already went over how tariffs can cause prices at the grocery store to go higher. Every single time we've historically increased tariffs on China, what have we seen? A reduction in U.S. agricultural exports. What did Trump have to do when he imposed his tariffs on China? He had to bail out American farmers with $28 billion. You say you want American industrialization. You say you want more U.S. production of goods. But then you also say that you want these tariffs on China to absolutely destroy American farmers. And you want the average American to be worse off, meaning they have less economic mobility to go and start a business in the first place. This is why Kamala Harris's tax policy is better, right? Because
this is like Democrat talking points.
Okay, well, can you dispute them?
Yeah, like I said, tariffs, the other country will pay the cost of the tariff. Okay, you're saying
it's just not true. It's not a magical solution. Even if the other country eats some of the cost, they're not going to be able to afford eating all of the cost. I mean, unless Nick Fuentes' argument, and I don't know how true this is that China, it's so cheap for them to produce any product in general and then ship it to America, which is an expense. That they are so drastically they're just like, okay, let's see, this item costs us $10. Okay, let's say this. Maybe this is Nick's argument. I don't know because I'm not like an economist. I don't know the specifics of how much these things cost. Let's say in a world there's an item or a product that's $10 to be made in America, and China's selling it for $9, right? Or rather, they're charging $10. An American company charges $10 for a product. It costs them $9 to produce that product, so they're only making $1 on it. Let's just say. China, on the other hand, it costs them $5 to produce it and ship it here, and they're charging $9 when they could be charging even less because the market can't compete. That might be true, and so if they put a tariff on the good, they wouldn't necessarily have to raise it. That could be true. I don't know how true it is that the margins are that thin for American products or that like massive for Chinese products. That might be the argument, but I would have to see all the costs and everything to know if that's true. I don't think it's true that like you wouldn't have an increase on the product, especially if American economists are estimating that would be a pretty big cost to Americans. I can't imagine that's true.
Consumers will pay it, and that's just wrong. Okay.
So you don't think
Trump administration? Hang on.
Trump
administration. I'll give you a perfect example. Trump administration implemented tariffs against Canada, against Europe, against China. Inflation was inflation was like 1.3% under Trump. Okay, so if what you're saying is true, that the cost of the tariff would be passed down to the consumer 1-to-1 or even significantly, inflation would not remain at or around 1%. Why? And by the way, Biden administration has tariffs too. Inflation is very high, but the cost of goods going up has everything to do with fuel prices going up.
Hey guys, we got 5
because
minutes.
of the war in Ukraine.
Hey, we got 5 more minutes.
Everything
That is a pretty significant amount of it right now. Thank you so much for the small gut from Nando. Appreciate that.
5 more minutes, Nick.
A very crucial point.
with the quantitative easing.
If they don't cause inflation of the pricing of goods at the grocery store, then why would we see an increase in domestic production?
Because it will make it competitive for America to make the same things.
Well, yeah, because the other product is more expensive, so it makes it more competitive.
If China, because it's basic math. If it costs, I'm going to if you stop interrupting me.
This question Nick can't answer. He's not going to be able to meaningfully answer this question.
If it costs less to make something in China because they have abundant labor than it does in the United States, then China can sell it at a lower price.
Yes, so then you tariff that good. They have to sell it at a higher price. It basically gets sold at a higher price because of the 20% tax, let's say. And now the companies can be like, oh, we can make money in this market because now we can compete with that price. So the only way for American companies to compete with the price is if the Chinese good costs more money. This is a very, very basic thing.
Because their cost is lower. But if we make them pay more to bring their goods to the market, then they have to sell it for more, or they have to pay the tariff and they make less profit.
Nick,
and that
you
makes it
disagree with
profitable
me.
for
If we
American
have to-
companies to make.
if
Can you
Chinese
stop
profit-
interrupting me? Can you
if Chinese products cost more?
Can
what
you
does
stop
that
interrupting
mean
me,
to the
please?
consumer? Sure.
It adds, but who pays the cost? China pays the cost.
No, the American consumer. He just isn't right on this. Like fundamental. I don't know if he just doesn't understand or if this is a debate tactic thing, but he's very wrong here.
To bring it to the market, not the consumer.
And who pays
Okay?
the cost once it's in the market?
Well, the consumer does.
Thank you.
But they're
Okay, wow.
buying, but they're buying what they're already buying. They're just buying it from an American producer.
Yes, and they're buying it from America now because the other one is more expensive.
Yeah, for a higher price, right?
Yeah, so for a slightly marginally higher price, we can have American production.
Okay.
Okay, it's fine to say like yes, it will cause the. It's a perfectly reasonable and defensible argument to say yes, it's going to increase the burden on the consumer slightly. But the offset of that, the trade-off, is that we get to make the good in America and we get to overall have a stronger economy or something like that. That's a perfectly reasonable argument. But you can't have it both ways. We're like, no, it won't cost any more, blah, blah, blah. You can't have it both ways. It's one argument or the other. You really cannot do both. And so, like, that's the funny part about this situation here.
Yes,
But there's
there
also
we go.
economies
There
of
we go.
scale.
Thank you.
It
Thank you.
stimulates American industry, and then America's able to produce what China.
So just admit, like, yeah, it might increase goods and services a little bit more, but it makes American competitors, well, it makes it so that America can compete more.
would
Say that.
ordinarily produce.
Okay. All right. In America, we'll produce it for.
That's the problem, is that like he's lying. He knows that what he's saying isn't true, but instead of telling the truth, like, yeah, you know what, this will happen. He needs to lie so that it looks as good as possible.
for a more expensive price because we don't have as cheap of labor as they
It
are in China.
protects the American industry, which
by
is
causing
under five.
inflation, right? Can you agree with me there?
Marginal. It's
Okay,
marginal.
Marginal increases.
And,
in
but either
inflation.
way,
we're getting somewhere.
but it's really neither here. Well, and I said that earlier, so it's the same thing. But either way,
Well, no.
the Biden
Okay.
administration has tariffs too, so it's basically a moot point.
No, it's not a moot point because once again, he wants to impose tariffs on all.
But you
businesses.
disagree with the Biden administration's policy, right?
Absolutely, right. I do
Okay, so
disagree with tariffs
what do we even argue about?
110%.
Trump had tariffs. Biden has tariffs.
No,
Tariffs
no, no.
protect industry in
This
America.
is-
You support that.
No, so the
And
reason
yet-
the reason that this is a bad argument is because Trump wants more tariffs, right? I don't understand how this isn't evidently clear. I think what you're trying to do is kind of confuse people between me saying that tariffs that Biden and Harris imposed were bad, and me saying that when Donald Trump is elected, he wants to impose all tariffs on
That's
all
just not
imported
true.
goods, right? One
That's
is
just not
worse than
true.
another. Okay, so
They're
you say
not.
that
They're
he
not
doesn't
putting
want to impose
tariffs on
all
all
tariffs.
imported goods.
Okay, does he just want to
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true, but Fuentes doesn't either. He admitted it earlier, so.
keep the ones on China?
It's going to be on. I don't know the Trump policy, but it's not on all imported goods. That's just
Okay,
a
so then how is he going to
Democrat
pay for the $4.8 trillion associated
You can
with
fact
the
check
tax
that.
cuts? Then how's he
Borrowing,
gonna pay for-
borrowing, like
from-
they pay for all, like how they pay
borrowing
for
from- borrowing from
175
Treasury?
billion to
And what's
yeah,
the biggest expense of our government?
liabilities,
Liabilities? No, it's interest. on
Medicare,
debt.
Social Security. That's totally wrong.
No, the biggest expense of our federal government is interest on debt.
Totally wrong.
Okay, I don't think that's wrong.
It's
In fact, I think
liabilities.
that's totally correct.
I mean, that might be big. I don't really know, nor do I think it's necessarily relevant, but.
We're wrapping
Okay.
up on time here. Let's we'll give.
Well, you're wrong on the Trump policy, and you're wrong on spending.
Okay,
You're
we'll give
just
a 1
wrong.
minute closing to Dean started, so we'll a 1 minute closing for Dean and then 1 minute for Nick.
I don't think you need to close this topic for anybody. You can just move on to the next topic. But okay, thank you so much for the 3 months small gut from Grim. Where do you think giraffes hide their privates? Dude, that's a fucking great question, brother.
Oh, you could go first, Nick.
Who gave the first opening statement? You or me?
It was Dean who started first.
Yeah, so Dean, we're gonna let Nick finish.
That means I go last. That means I go last.
Dean, you start.
And then Dean, the next one, Nick will start.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's fine. I was just looking for a source to justify what I said there. So yeah, my closing statement would just be, right, obviously I think the economic policy is a very prime reason to vote for Kamala Harris because she's going to make the average American better off. Donald Trump is not going to make the average American the better off. He's going to make them worse off with his tariffs. Right, Nick essentially did concede there, saying that tariffs do cause higher prices for the consumers at the grocery store. And then Nick also just kind of says that he doesn't really care about debt. Okay, so if you want more debt, vote for Donald Trump because he's going to throw $5.8 trillion on our nation's debt. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's proposed tax policy is going to be self-sufficient over the 10-year lifespan of the bill. And then one other final point here, there's much more reasons why Kamala Harris is a better candidate than Donald Trump that we didn't get to touch on, such as the fact that we probably shouldn't be voting for a rapist. We probably shouldn't be voting for a religious persecutor. We should probably be voting for the individual that wants to enshrine federal protections for all 100.
Well, I would be more. I mean, I guess those are good points too, but I would be more on like we shouldn't, vote for the guy that tried to overthrow the government.
170 million American women and girls' right to choose, right, and plenty of other reasons that we didn't get to get to, and I'm sad that we didn't, and hopefully we might be able to get back around to it later. But I'll go and continue the rest of my time. Take it away.
Yeah. All right. Well, Aiden and Sneeko, could we do immigration? I feel like that's a big one. We could do a few of these other issues.
Real quick,
'cause it's
before
a big issue.
Can you just do your statement really quick?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, can we make that one of the topics?
Well, that's something that we had to talk about prior. Dean, if you would like to as well, we could do that. Next.
Can you repeat that? I was a little
He wants
bit.
to talk about immigration. If you want to keep Trump or Kamala going, we have other subjects, but on the subject of Trump or Kamala.
You guys didn't agree to that prior, but if you guys want to agree to do an immigration, we can do that next. It's up to you guys. Both of you have to agree.
Yeah, you just want to see. I mean, like maybe we could throw it in there at the end. I mean, get through the 4 topics we have agreed upon.
Sure.
If there's time, we might be able to talk about it.
Okay, so please give your closing
Yeah.
statement, Nick.
Yeah. So, I mean, my closing statement on Trump, I don't even think fiscal policy is the biggest issue. To me, that's really a side issue. And the reason is because both parties are profligate spenders. Republicans, Democrats are both profligate spenders. Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, they're all huge spenders. They're huge spenders on military. They're not touching liabilities.
Well, again, Obama did lower the annual federal deficit significantly. So,
there's talk about tax cuts increasing the deficit. You could look at the Laffer curve and, debate whether that's really the case. I mean, the theory behind tax cuts is that it stimulates economic growth, which it certainly does.
It does, but it's not worth the amount of, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. We were never going to. We would have to hit like a 6.3% GDP for it to actually end up like balancing out. You know what I mean? It's nice when people have cheaper things, but we should be taxing more to certain people. I think that's some kind of a tax on. I think it's capital gains tax. The tax on people's stocks before they take them out is a good idea, and then you write it off if you take a loss. Specifically, because my understanding is a lot of rich people will use assets in order to buy goods, and so they're not even necessarily paying themselves a lot. Like Warren Buffett pays himself like $100,000 a year, and then he uses his assets to leverage against buying particular things. And so it's like it's very complicated, but they basically get to buy things without actually giving themselves like an income. It's very bizarre. So we should probably tax this stuff.
Brings in more tax revenue. Maybe you find that convincing. Maybe you don't. The point is, neither party's going to rein in the deficit. I just don't think it's an issue. In terms of tariffs, the consensus has changed. Democrats and Republicans used to be free traders. They're not anymore. Bill Clinton, Bush, Obama were free traders. They're just not anymore. Trump is not a free trader. Biden's not a free trader. Trump has tariffs. Biden has tariffs. And that's because there's a recognition that we need to have a supply chain in America. 85% of the economy in America is services. Only 15% is construction, agriculture, and manufacturing. And this is it's not only a national security issue, but it's also a jobs issue. We need to make stuff in America. The only way that we're going to beat these other countries that are undercutting us with wages is with tariffs to protect our industries. And yes, that does result in technically marginally higher consumer prices, but it's more important to have good jobs in industry.
All right, that was good. So we'll circle back to Trump and Kamala, but to keep it on the subject, we have 4 very different topics.
Kamala? I've never heard that before.
Quick, before I just want to say thank you both for giving you guys, you guys are letting each other talk and stuff. Thank you, I appreciate that. Go ahead, Nico. I'm sorry to cut you off.
All right, so the next subject that we agreed upon was Christianity, but to make it interesting, Nick, we can be more specific. We could talk about Christian nationalism.
Sure.
Okay, so the subject will be: is Christian nationalism good or bad? And,
okay.
I mean, it's bad, right? Christian nationalism is this concept that the country should be Christian. I mean, that goes against our separation of church and state. So, no, it's fine if you are, but yeah, I mean, the old idea is freedom of expression in the United States.
Well, let's start with Nick because we started with Dean last time. We'll do let's do 3-minute intro. I'll give you a 1-minute warning, and then I'll give Dean a 3-minute intro, and then we'll go free flowing. And if it's interruptions, we'll time it. But I think it was good so far. But Nick, take the floor. 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, I believe that America should have a religious government. We should have a Christian Catholic government.
Yeah, I just don't think that's true.
Like that.
And, we have to face the fact that liberalism has failed. And the best example that liberalism is failing is that we're not having enough kids. The society, the civilization that doesn't have kids will cease to exist, and it will lose, and it is losing.
So, first of all, we're not losing. We're the strongest country in the entire world. We can meme about it as much as we want, but that's the reality. That's number one. Number two, yes, birth rates are down. There are a lot of reasons for that. Part of it's because women want to focus on jobs to some extent. Marriage has gone from a forced arrangement between a father and children, their daughter, or rather, the arrangement between the father and a man, basically selling their daughter to some extent. And over time, it's been more and more focused on love. So people are trying to find love in some capacity. People are focusing on their jobs. There are financial issues. People are more educated now, so they're not as willing to have kids when they don't have the money for it. It's rough in the middle class right now. Some people are selfish. There are a lot of different reasons. The reality, though, is that this is how people... We need to deal with the problem of people feeling economic burden, and then at the end of the day, it's people's freedoms of choice of what they want to do. You can't really force people to have kids if they don't want to. I think that would be quite a bizarre society, and fortunately, there are other countries where we can, basically import immigration, legal immigration, that'll offset an aging population. At the end of the day, you can't really force people to have more kids. That kind of goes against people's freedoms, so I am against that. I'd love to see a higher birth rate. Of people in the United States already, regardless of skin color or whatever. I don't care about that. It's not a bad thing though. I like people that adhere to our general American culture. It's nothing super, crazy, but there is a slight one. But also I'm fine with fucking immigrants coming in. I also don't care about that. That's fine. I don't really give a shit. How do you do that? Again, you incentivize people having kids. So that looks like different ways, some kind of child care, stimulation, some kind of just making it easier to afford living, dealing with a housing crisis. More money in people's pockets is really where it comes down to. So
liberalism around the world is receding, and these more ancient tribal perennial cultures are thriving. Islam is the fastest growing religion. China is on the rise. Tribalism, racialism, all these things, all these revanchist historic ideologies are on the rise. And they're all beating back liberalism because liberalism is
But they're not, though, right? I mean, China's doing well, but overall, these other countries are weaker than us.
weak. It is ineffectual. It's causing all kinds of perversity, degeneracy. People are not having kids. It's
In a lot of non-Western countries, pretty much all non-Western countries, it's legal to rape your spouse. So I don't know how it's a degeneracy. Like, you know what I mean? I don't see how ours is more degenerate.
sort of like,
But I think that he just thinks people that are gay are degenerates, even though he jerks off to femboy porn, and he's pretty open about it. So.
anti-human and inimical to the human body. So, I mean, in addition to Catholicism and Christianity being true, liberalism is clearly bankrupt. Liberalism is clearly having a hard time. I think we should replace our state religion of liberalism with the state religion of Christianity. And I'm interested to see where Dean wants to take it, because obviously it's a huge topic, but I think we should have a Catholic country, not a liberal atheist one.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different ways that a conversation about Christian nationalism can go. I mean, I've debated people on Christian nationalism before that will concede even if Christianity's false, right? We should still be a country that upholds Christian nationalism because it promotes better outcomes. But I think there's a couple points there that I'd just like to respond to real quick about declining birth rates, immigration. That's crazy. Then about, a couple of the other points that you brought up. I particularly think that Christian nationalism is bad because it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. Given like the Christian religion, right, we are led to believe that particular things are wrong because God said so. You said that you're Catholic. I think in the Catholic faith, you'll kind of have a different range on how bad things are. Something can be a mortal sin, a venial sin. But something that I'd say here that is a very absurd conclusion given Christian nationalism is shit like blasphemy. So like blasphemy, as defined by the Bible, is the worst sin that anyone can commit. Does that mean that people should go to jail for life for blasphemy? Well, I don't know, because we know that people should go to jail for life for murder. And if blasphemy is worse than murder, and we're operating under a system in a society with a government that legislates on the basis of the Bible and these foundational beliefs as prescribed by Christianity, are we going to start sending people to jail for blasphemy too? I don't see how you'd be able to respond to that. I don't. And then like a couple other things that we could say here. The Bible promotes very harmful bad beliefs. I mean, 1 Samuel 15:3, God tells Saul and his men to genocide the Amalekite men, women, and girls.
Yeah, and there's also no age of consent in the Bible. This is just a fact. Sorry, guys.
I bet if I was to engage in a conversation with this guy specifically about 1 Samuel 15:3, we'll end up saying that sometimes genocide's okay. Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46. God tells the Israelites that they can own the non-Israelites as human property for life. I bet if I was to have a conversation with this guy about that topic, he'd end up saying that no, slavery hasn't always been wrong, alongside other things, right? So we could talk about how Christianity is false. We could talk about how it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. We could talk about the absurdities that are already present in the Bible. But one last point that I'd like to bring up is if you're going to make an argument on the basis of the efficacy and the outcomes in which it would generate in society, which seemingly you started to there, well, what if we find another religion that generates better outcomes than the one that you hold to?
1 minute.
Okay, so the reason that you want a Christian nation is because it will promote human well-being and happiness. People are going to be having more kids and following these commandments. They'll be doing good. No degeneracy, none of that shit. Well, what if I told you that the LDS church had even better outcomes than the Catholic church? Would you all of a sudden be in support of an LDS-led state? Probably not. Okay, right? So that's another contradiction on its own. So feel free to kind of pick and choose there, respond to the point that you want to take it away.
So the you said about birth rates or immigration. Well, here's the problem. Okay, one, the people that have liberalism are killing themselves. Okay, so the people that invented liberalism, that live in liberal societies, literally and figuratively are killing themselves. They're committing suicide. They're dying.
The guy that you worship.
Okay, are you going to interrupt me like 30 seconds into my rebuttal? That's crazy. No confidence in liberalism. They commit suicide. They die from desert despair. They're addicted to drugs. All kinds of things.
There are drug issues, absolutely. I would argue. I mean, honestly, I mean, yeah, there is. I don't know if there's more depression in the United States or not. I would honestly, I know this sounds like weird because I'm trying to think about like what is it, and it could be like relative struggle. I feel like it's because people are smarter nowadays. People who tend to be smarter, and like when you have access to better education, you're just gonna be smarter. People who tend to be smarter tend to overthink every little decision that they make, and it makes you more stressed out. In general, you're more stressed out about every one of your problems because you're actually thinking about the problem in general. I think that's where a lot of anxiety comes from, is we have I'm not going to say an overeducated population, but we have an educated population who doesn't know how to deal with the constant stream of thought. I've seen older generations of people sit and stare at walls and really not have a thought going on behind those eyes. And there is like a preservation of their sanity. They can just stand still and watch things for hours on end and they just turn themselves off. It's almost impressive. You don't really see that going on like with younger people who tend to be more formally educated, tend to have these stresses, these greater stresses, greater anxieties. I'd also say social media is a pretty big factor. I imagine in other poorer areas, they don't have access to like robust social media. When you're constantly consuming things that are riling you up, and that's the point, people tend to watch shit that riles them up, you're going to be more stressed out by the news of what's going on. So when you look at something, oh my God, this thing happened to me today, this is a huge deal. Unfortunately, as fucked up as that thing is, it's probably not really happening. Year over year, we're getting safer and safer, but social media is effectively psyoping people to some extent to believe that things are getting worse and worse year over year. So there's a lot of complicated reasons why people have more mental health issues. I don't think it has anything to do with liberalism. I think it has a lot to do with access to technology and access to education.
They're all dying over there. Okay, we're dying in America. We're dying in Europe. And by the way, these people come from non-liberal or illiberal societies, and then their birth rate goes down. So even if you wanted to argue, oh, well, like, we could salvage liberalism with an endless supply of immigration from illiberal societies that have kids, when they get here, their birth rate goes down. And these are not liberal people. They come from illiberal places like China or Africa or Latin America. They come here, they assimilate, and within a few generations, the birth rate goes down because liberalism is suicidal. With regard to the question about efficacy and outcomes, I'm not arguing that we should have the religion with the best efficacy. I said liberalism has failed. And we know it's failed because it's committing suicide. So clearly liberalism as a system is not working. And that's why, it's such a radical...
Again, it is working. We're the strongest country in the entire world. So I just want to be very clear. It is working, even if it has flaws.
Notion. People think that we would have blasphemy laws or religious laws. They think it's a radical notion. It's unthinkable. The current system must be replaced. It's an imperative. It's not a question of, whether or how or anything like that.
This is just like fear-mongering effectively here, so.
It simply must be because it will cease to exist. And so that's really the crux of the argument. Why it should be Catholicism, it's because Catholicism is true. But the point I'm trying to make is for people that say, it's so radical that we would go backwards. I would say we went backwards with liberalism as evidenced by the fact that it's not even reproducing itself. And that's a huge problem. With regard to the stuff about the Old Testament, look, the Catholic Church, Christians today are not in favor of genocide or slavery. If you want...
Yeah, but why wouldn't they be if you're going to use that book as law, or else you're starting to deviate away from those books?
I want to get into that. This is just like new atheism 101. Just like, are you an atheist? Let me just...
No, liberalism is not a religion, but he's comparing it to a religion. That's like his whole point. It's,
Are you an atheist or something?
I'm an agnostic, but I wouldn't particularly use these verses in the Bible to say that your religion is false. I use these verses in the Bible to say that your religion is absurd. To say that your religion is false.
I just wanted to ask you that, and then let me finish the last point. So it's very funny when atheists who have no objective source of morality, it's like, they're...
Yeah, I don't think you need an objective source of morality. I think that you can look at the world and go like, if this harms me, I shouldn't do it upon other people. It's not that. It's not like a super complicated thing.
Morality is something like, hey man, just leave everybody alone. What if I disagree? What if my morality says, well, I want to kill everybody or something? What if...
Then you'd go to jail because killing everybody hurts those people? Okay.
The majority of people said our morality says, well, we want to harm and we want to rape and we want to do this and that.
Yeah, so that's wrong. Because we decided. So that's it. You have different religions with different moralities. You have different people with different moralities. The idea that like you have to listen to a God to get your moral framework is, to me, in my opinion, is lazy. You should be able to be a little bit smarter than that. So
an atheist has no God that says, well, so-and-so has the authority to say this is correct. That's a problem. And yeah, they have a problem with blasphemy laws. It is good to have a God that is a source of authority, that gives us our morality, that is unquestionable. With regard to the Old Testament, if you want to get into the debate about, what's bad, I would start with the question of how do you know what's bad?
Hey, Nick, I'm sorry.
You claim that certain things are bad. You don't know where good and bad comes from. And
yeah, I'm a human being with the ability to make reasonable assertions about things.
How do we know the good and bad are even real? If we're all material, if we're only...
It's funny because like this is actually a very real philosophical conversation. Like, how do we know good and bad is real? Right? We don't. Right? Not necessarily. Everything's a moral construct to some extent. And if that conflicts you so much that you're like, it's too much thinking. I can't engage with this. We need to just, God. It just sounds like you're mentally very lazy and unable to engage with the conversation. It's just kind of where it is. We're a little more complex than that, so.
Only atoms and we don't have souls. Why does it matter what happens to any of us? What is justice? Is there such a thing as the conceptual? If there was only matter, where is the conceptual? Can we see it? Can we feel it? Is it located somewhere? And I'm making a point here. I'll wrap it up quickly. So for an atheist to point to the Old Testament and say, well, how could a God who does these things be so immoral? I would say to the godless, what is moral and who are we if we're not just stardust being rearranged? Slavery, these things, these are conceptual. It can only exist with a real philosophical viewpoint, not with this kind of lame, like, Sky Daddy isn't real sort of stuff. So, there's just a lot of assumptions there that kind of need to be interrogated.
Okay, Dean,
I think
before you go
to be interrogated is the fact that you asked people, what do I do with a group of people who like to murder, rape, and kill others?
Love the moderation.
What if God said that?
Then
I think that's a question that we need to ask.
Then we would have to do it.
Wait, really? If God told you to rape and kill a baby, would you do it?
Jesus Christ.
Oh, well, God would never do that because God is good and those things are evil.
Okay, so raping and killing is evil. So when he commanded you to kill babies in Malachi in 1 Samuel 15:3, that was evil?
God is telling us to rape and kill babies right now?
So specifically about killing, in 1 Samuel 15:3, he did command Saul and his men to kill the Amalekite babies.
Well, did God say that, or did somebody go, yeah, God told me to do this thing? That's kind of one of the issues with religion as well.
Rape babies? He told them to rape babies?
No, to kill babies.
Well, yeah, then if I were one of those guys, I would have done it, but not rape them.
Okay, so if God commanded you to kill a baby today,
okay,
would you do it?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, so why would you kill a baby, but you wouldn't rape a baby?
What's the context? If God was real, I guess, and he told me to do it, I guess. I just don't... God has never been proven to be real, unfortunately. And how do we know that people aren't lying about what God's saying? I don't really know. But that's wild work, man. The only way I would kill the baby is if I was like, this is literally Satan. This is Satan in a baby form. You got to kill it. I was like, you sure, God? And I'm like, he's like, yeah, you got to fucking kill it. So I killed the baby, and I ended up in a mental institution. But I did save the world, guys. So, okay.
Because that would be cruel or something.
Wait, is killing a baby not cruel?
In the Old Testament, it worked differently.
No, I'm talking
That's a
about
fallen
you said,
world.
You particularly said that you would kill a baby today if God asked you, but you
If
wouldn't
God told us,
rape
yeah.
a baby if God asked you. So how come
Not
you kill
rape.
a baby today but not rape a baby?
Because the context of the Old Testament is that it's a fallen world. And that's the context you're talking about. You said that in
Yeah, but if God said today to rape the baby, I mean, by this logic, you would do it. I don't really know why God would make you do that. That's crazy.
in the Old Testament,
we're not
God
talking
said
about
to-
the- dude, please
hang
answer
on,
my
yeah,
question.
we
This is a
literally
genuine
are.
answer.
Well,
You
if we're
told
not
me
talking about,
today-
wait. If we're not talking about the
Give me
Old
30
Testament,
seconds.
what are we talking about?
About the fact that you told me today, if God commanded you to kill a baby, you would do it. And then I followed that up by asking you, if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? And you said,
God
no,
would do that
because
because
that's
it's evil.
cruel. Okay, so killing a baby today, you would do if God commanded it, but raping a baby today, you wouldn't do because God wouldn't command it.
Well,
because it's evil.
first of
Are
all-
you making the implication that killing a
first of
baby
all-
today is an evil?
I mean, I think the best answer for this question as a religious person is to be like, he just wouldn't do that, so I'm not going to answer your question. Because, like, where do you go? It's like, why would he want me to do that? Why would he ever want me to kill the baby, you know?
No. What you said is that
Okay,
in the
so
Old
then you wouldn't do
Testament.
that either, right?
Well, hang
This
on.
is seemingly a
Let's
contradiction.
rewind. Let's rewind because you said in the Bible God says to rape babies. Can you just
No, I
retract
said
that?
kill
Because that never
babies.
happened. No,
No, I
if you
said kill
rewind,
babies.
yeah, okay. People can rewind the clip. You said kill and rape babies because you got to and rape
we'll
people.
clear
Because
this
you
up
got a
so
little
easily.
ahead of yourself. Because you got a
Nick,
little
we'll
ahead
clear
of
this up
yourself.
so- Nick,
That
I will
never
literally
happened.
clear this up so easily.
Okay.
If I said God commanded Solomon his men to rape babies in 1 Samuel 15:3, I misspoke. In 1
Okay,
Samuel
thank
15:3,
you,
God
yeah.
commands
But
Solomon his
see,
men
that's
to
a
kill
problem.
babies. But you are not answering my question. This is a genuine
I am.
answer. Every single person
Well, no, he's not answering his question because he's afraid. He knows that he looks really bad answering this question.
watching the stream can see that you said if God commanded you to kill a baby today, you said you would do it. Can you
Can
affirm
we be
that fact?
serious? Can we be serious for a second?
We are being dead serious. Can you affirm the fact that you said if God told you to kill a baby, you do
Can we
it?
be serious? Can we grow up?
Why won't you answer my question?
Well, because we're talking about the Old Testament, are we not?
We're talking about today. How many
Oh,
times do I
my-
need to say that?
You're talking about the Old Testament. You're citing the Old Testament. You're talking about a specific.
He's saying if God came out today and said kill babies, would you? This is very simple. Nick is a little afraid because he knows that optically this looks really bad for him.
verse in the Old Testament.
Oh my God,
You
this
can,
is
you can
crazy.
look. You can
Phil,
giggle.
I specifically
Can we
asked you-
confirm that we're talking about the Old Testament? Is that
No.
correct?
That is
What are we
not
talking
correct.
about?
Exactly. I'll tell you exactly
Well, the next question is why is it justifiable to kill babies back then but not now? What's the difference?
what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that I asked you a damning hypothetical question. I asked you.
It's
if
not.
God-
It's a
one moment.
cheap.
Do you mind if I have
It's
30
a
seconds?
cheap context. No, it's
You're
a cheap
interrupting me because
context
you don't want me to
denial.
talk because you know that you're losing.
Yeah, because the Old Testament says bad things in it. I know. I'm a new atheist, and I just discovered. Here's my answer to your question. If you allow me to answer it, I know you want a cheap gotcha question, but let's add a little context. The Old Testament takes place in a fallen world. We live in a fallen world because we have free will. Okay, God created human beings. Human beings disobeyed God and sinned. Because we disobeyed God and sinned, we have the penalty of death, war, shame, guilt, pain at birth, all these things. In the fallen world, people kill. In the fallen world, people kill, people lie, cheat, steal. Cain kills Abel. In the world, the fallen world, before Jesus Christ arrived, it was a world with slavery and warfare and iniquity. It is in this context that God commanded the chosen people to kill certain tribes to establish their survival, to secure a line for the coming of the Messiah. God does not approve of killing because it says in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. God does not approve of rape because it says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and so on and so forth. So God obviously does not support killing, raping. Oh, would you kill and rape a baby? No. But in the Bible, God prescribes laws and specific actions at the beginning of the world, which was fallen without Christ, without a savior, in sin, for the survival of the chosen people. So the rules worked a little bit differently in the Old Testament. It doesn't mean that, and of course, taking a life in and of itself, hang on, there's a difference everybody knows between killing and murder. If I go and murder you for no reason, that's immoral. If I kill in self-defense or self-defense of my children, it's a different story. God commanding the people of the Old Testament is an extraordinary exception based on the fallen old world. That's one. Two, when Jesus Christ arrives, he fulfills the law and saves people from hell. Before Jesus Christ arrived, nobody would go to heaven.
What are they in a fucking amphitheater? What the hell?
And it was a world of iniquity. And Jesus Christ changed and created this modern world that we're living in. So now here's the thing. God is the authority. If God commands us to, look, I know it's a complicated issue. You can't fit it into a TikTok or YouTube.
What is happening? Why did they do this?
Yes, we drive by.
It sounds like Aiden and Sneeko are watching this without earbuds in, and so when they unmute it, like whatever this happens, they
You know, but it's actually complicated issue. We were talking about evil, the existence of evil. So does that mean that God is not an authority? Of course not. God is an authority. Would God command us to do those things today? Probably not. But if he did, in a hypothetical scenario, we'd
what does God think about Among Us balls? Good question.
have to trust God if we truly believe in God. Otherwise, you would say something like, we know more than God, or God is not good, or we're better than God, and that negates the concept of a God or good itself. So that's my answer to your, so when you say killing babies, it ties into like abortion policy.
Oh, you know what?
It's just like
That's
cheap, low
crazy.
IQ, left-wing bullshit. But anyway, go ahead.
Cool, thank you. So I hear everything that you just said. I will give that a great
Did you?
response. I sure did. But before I give that a response, I wanted to take a brief moment to go back to the question that I was attempting to get you to answer prior. I understand that you just kind of gave me the story of the Old and New Covenant. We had different rules before, the Messiah came back down, created the New Covenant, whatever. I get it. Thank you. Okay. But the question that I asked you was, if God commanded you to kill a baby, would you do it? You said yes. I then asked you, Nick Fuentes, if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? And you said, no, that's too cruel. If you
Yeah, so how do you know what is and isn't cruel?
would like to take 15 seconds to
Stop pulling
clear
me.
up that gap, like, does that make the implication that killing a baby is
I answered
cruel?
the question. I answered the question.
He really didn't, because he can't answer that question. That's it. Because this is the thing. He said he would kill a baby if he was told that he has to kill a baby by God, but he won't rape the baby, right? And then this guy would never say that. Well, why didn't you just say that about killing the baby? Unless you think there's a justifiable reason to kill the baby. And if that's the case, tell us what your justifiable reason is. Is it because the baby is evil? What the hell? Or ugly? You know? Give me an answer. Don't tap dance around it because you don't want to answer that question, right? So
You didn't.
Okay. Is this a debate about Christian nationalism, or is this like a weird new atheist?
I mean, that was isn't it kind of?
By the way, why do you think killing is wrong? Where do you get that information from?
So first of all,
How could killing a baby be a right in any context?
well, I don't think that killing is inherently wrong. I think that murder is wrong. Okay.
Okay, so you agree with me then?
Right. And then what I'd say here about
What's the justifier to killing a baby, though?
murder is that's just going to be driven given my conditions.
Abortion. Oh my God. Wait a minute. Oh my God. God supports abortion.
Objectivist, we all know this, but I think you are too. Would you agree with me?
You're
That
subjectivist.
would you agree with me that objectivism can be defined as like a stance independent, like truth?
It's an independent truth? What did you say? I didn't hear you.
Like a stance independent truth. That's what it means for
A
something to be
stance
objective.
independent truth?
Yeah.
Of independent truth, or that there is independent truth?
Okay. Wow.
The sentence construction doesn't make sense.
Okay. So like in philosophy, right? When we're referencing terms such as moral objectivism or moral subjectivism, we define objectivism given like when I say murder is wrong, that is true independent of any stance, of any act, or of any mind. Okay. When I say
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I don't understand the construction. I'm not. You're like mumbling to yourself. Yeah,
No,
I
I'm just
believe.
asking
Yeah,
if you agree with my
subjectivism is that
definition.
there's an independent truth. Yes.
It's funny because he would do this a lot when he would talk to Destiny. He was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And he would just pretend like he couldn't hear him or something. This is what he does when he doesn't know an answer to a question. He just goes, I can't hear you. I don't know what you're saying. What are you saying? I can't hear you.
Okay. So is morality independent of God?
No, because
Okay,
God is morality. God is good.
So morality is subject to God.
Okay. Ooh, could God create a box so heavy he couldn't lift it? Yeah, that's great. So if you believe
That
that
would be a
killing is not,
contradiction. I didn't give you a
I know.
contradiction. I just showed you that you're
I
a
know.
moral subjectivist.
I know. Thank you. So,
That's cute, huh?
so where do you believe that killing is wrong then? So you believe it's subjective. You don't believe it's absolutely wrong.
10 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that, Aiden?
10 minutes, guys.
All right. My wife is calling me, of course, right when I'm fucking in the...
Great, yeah. So I mean, I could kind of give you a little bit of an overview of my stance here on morality. So metaethically, I'm just gonna be a subjectivist or relativist when we like to reference like why I think things are wrong. It's just gonna be driven by my intuitions. I mean, like we could talk about different moral frameworks. I myself am what is called a threshold deontologist, meaning that I believe that like particular things can be always wrong, but meanwhile we should consider like the consequences of others. It's pretty interesting.
Is
But
Holocaust wrong?
Yeah, the Holocaust was wrong.
Objectively?
And mass killing a bunch of people is wrong. So yes, I think, I mean, nothing is objectively wrong, but it is very, very extraordinarily wrong. You know? Yes, it's wrong.
No, because objective truth in the context of morality doesn't exist. Nothing's
In your
objective
opinion,
or
it's
right
wrong.
because that standard doesn't exist.
Yes, in my opinion, murdering a group of people for no reason is probably wrong. Yes. Genocide's probably wrong, guys.
Opinion, it's wrong.
And in accordance with my index standard, it's wrong. Yeah, but I mean, just saying, oh, you believe in subjectivism, but I'm gonna like counter that by asking you, is it objectively wrong? That doesn't really achieve anything. I could literally.
What
ask
is
you
your
a question here.
qualification?
Was the Holocaust objectively wrong?
Of course it was wrong. Of course,
But you
objectively wrong.
disagreed with me that morality is subject to God.
Because morality is God. It's identity, not
Wait,
subjectivity.
God is identical to morality?
Yes, God is good. God is the good.
Okay, so when I say that like hugging your mom is good, I'm just saying that hugging your mom is God.
Yes.
Okay, so can you just say that for me? Like every single time you kiss your wife, that's a really God thing to do.
Love
It's a pretty badass thing to say, I guess.
is good. An act of love that expresses love is good. God is the good. God is being itself. We are participating in being.
Oh, wait, now we have some more issues here because earlier you told me that God would never command you to like rape a baby because that's evil. But now you're saying that God is identical to goodness. Meaning, if God is all powerful in the sense that he could do anything that's logically possible and he's identical to goodness, why wouldn't he be able to tell you to rape a baby?
Did you say grape?
I did. TikTok words. I know.
Well,
I
God
stream on
also
there for
tells us
TikTok,
that God's plan is very complex.
Why won't you answer
and-
my question?
Because these are just like low IQ.
No, that's not a low IQ point at all. We're
it
literally
is.
talking about what you think goodness is, what its derivative, and how it would apply to your God. Actually, we could extrapolate this out to the problem of evil as a whole, right? Like you actually said earlier that you think that the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Would you say all
If it
things
happened. If it happened at all, by the way. But yeah,
Okay,
let's,
Okay.
theoretically,
What the
in
fuck?
theory.
Hey!
It did happen, just to be clear. But okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah, dude, Nick, what the fuck?
But also, Nick wouldn't think it's wrong because he hates Jewish people and thinks that there's like a Jewish conspiracy to kill everybody, so they control the world, which is obviously not true. But
Bro,
Yeah, this guy's over here saying,
Oh my
if the
gosh.
Holocaust happened,
Oh my
but then he
gosh.
asked me if the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Get a load of this joker. So I just want to ask you a fucking quick
Get a load of
question.
this joker.
Oh yeah, get a load of this joker.
yeah, you notice Nick will like meme thing. Oh, did you say grape? And he's trying to distract the conversation because he knows he's getting rolled in the conversation. So he constantly, I can't hear you. Oh, did you just make this meme? Oh, let me meme this. Oh, let me meme that. It's a lot of intentional memes because like he has no real answers for these things.
Another joke. What do you got?
You need to unmute your
Get
mic.
a load of this.
You want to tell me another joke? Keep talking. I'm gonna go and ask you a
No,
question. Would you
that's
say
very good.
all things considered that the Holocaust is wrong?
If it were real, yes. Yeah.
Oh my
and
God.
it is, and it is, and it absolutely
You're so
is.
fucking spineless. How the fuck can you sit in front of 45,000 people and say that the most well-documented thing that has ever happened in history might not have happened? I want to ask you a question. How the fuck do you know that Jesus resurrected from the dead, but you don't know the Holocaust happened? Please answer that question.
That's actually a good question.
Shroud of Turin.
Shroud of Turin. That's been taken by the Shroud of Turin is a more reliable standard for evidence than the 250.
Whose mic is off? What are you talking about? You can't hear me? I'm literally looking at my shit and I can hear myself. Are you guys trolling? Like, I'm not understanding. There's like no way that any of this is like true unless you guys are just fucking so far behind. I have to like check this now just to be safe. Holy fuck. Okay, let's continue.
The thing that didn't happen.
Justify that the Holocaust exists.
Listen, this isn't a Holocaust debate. Let's try to stay focused. This is a Christianity debate.
No, let's talk about it. The Shroud of Turin specifically, we had 4 different group of scientists take different parts of it. None of them could date it back to anything after 400 years AD.
I'm just saying it's a lot of people.
No.
It's funny. It's not funny, but like Nick Fuentes' audience is eating this up right now because they are Holocaust deniers and they think that this is like a funny little meme, and so they're triggering this guy. And like he's right to contest them, but the energy he's coming at them with, it's gonna make Nick Fuentes' audience like start masturbating. They're gonna start jerking off.
I want you to tell me how the fuck you know that Jesus rose from the dead with a lack of any historical evidence that exists from during his lifetime, from a first-person experience.
Calm down.
Yeah,
this is a factual debate. This is a factual debate, Kamala. Tampon Tim.
Yeah,
hey, listen, Tampon Tim, this is about
facts.
1, Shroud of Turin. Impossible to create other than with Jesus ascending into heaven. That's 1. 2, all I'm saying is, that's a lot of bodies. Unless we forgot the technology to cremate them. Look, I don't know. I wasn't there, and you weren't either.
The Shroud of Turin. Wait. So you're telling me that it was absolutely impossible for some random?
It is interesting. First of all, I don't think that there's any like lack of evidence. Second of all, I found it really interesting that like you believe that a guy rose from the dead, but you're questioning the number of bodies. I don't know, man. It's interesting.
If impossible for the Shroud of Turin to exist, then please tell me
you don't
why.
know facts.
Then please tell me why. Tell me why the earliest carbon dating on the Shroud of Turin that we've gotten from the material used to create the Shroud of Turin is like from 1200 AD.
That's not true. That's not even true.
It's either 400.
You can fact check that. That's not even true. They just did a new study on it and they proved it's 100% real.
They proved it 100%.
Who's they?
It's 100%. It's like super real. That's 1.
Okay.
Wow.
2, we have secular historians that testify that Jesus was a real person and was crucified. Josephus, Tacitus. We also have
Josephus isn't secular. Let's get our facts straight. He was a Jewish.
Okay, he was Jewish. Okay, he was Jewish. I mean non-Christian. Thank you for the clarification. Are we good?
Secular mean non-Christian?
Are we good? You know what I meant.
Yeah, he has to believe that Jesus wasn't Jewish because he hates Jews.
I mean, if you were to say that a Christian source is biased, then arguably a non-Christian source would be unbiased. That's the point. Josephus, Tacitus. But you also have the earliest versions of the gospel stories going back to the 1st century. The earliest fragments of it go back to the 1st century. And you have people that went to their death. That's part of why Christianity spread. They went to their death. The Christians were martyred, testifying that they saw a resurrected Jesus. Liars don't go to their death testifying that something happened if it didn't. Certainly not, 11 out of 12 of them, or every single one of them. And that is the basis of how it spread in the ancient world. So, I mean, there's that. There's the Shroud of Turin. There's non-Christian historians. There's the fragments of the gospel.
Yeah, so
there's the prophecies that are fulfilled by Jesus in the New Testament.
So the Shroud of Turin, that shit just goes straight out the fucking window. We have carbon dated it. Not a piece of it dates back to when Jesus was alive in accordance with Josephus and Tacitus, which you reported.
Carbon dating is flawed.
Oh, okay.
Carbon dating is flawed. And there was, and that's not
I don't think carbon dating is flawed at all in any capacity. What are you talking about?
It's earlier than it is, but we just don't know
that's not true. Well, 1, it's not real because carbon dating says that like dinosaurs.
Then how do we know that it was from
And
Jesus?
2,
it's not real because it says dinosaurs are okay. What if they are real? Then I don't understand.
2, there was a recent study done. 2, there was a recent study that was done that showed that it literally would not even be possible using the technology at the time to create a forgery.
What?
So it had to have been created by something with luminosity that just didn't exist back then for it to imprint throughout the entire shroud. They didn't have that kind of technology back then.
Wait, I have a question.
It's impossible to create it any other way.
Do you mind if I ask you a question here? Okay, so I like this argument. Let's just go ahead and say that you're right. It was impossible to create without some sort of divinity. Jesus Christ is a prophet of the Islamic religion. Can you please give me any reason to believe that Christianity is true more so than Islam being true?
That's just a stupid question.
That luminosity could be granted, either Islam being true.
Do you know what Muslims?
True?
Let me ask you this question. Do you know what Muslims believe about Jesus Christ and the crucifixion? Can you tell me?
Prophet of God. He didn't actually die on the cross. Someone else stepped in his shoes.
So what was the Shroud of Turin? Do you know?
Oh, it was over him in the burial.
So how would we know Islam isn't true? Well, let's see. If he wasn't actually crucified, then how would they lay the shroud over his body and his soul leave to make the imprint? So you don't even know what you're talking about.
No, you don't know what you're talking about.
Trying to work it out on the fly. Doesn't even know the order of how could the Muslim Jesus leave the Shroud of Turin imprint if he was never crucified and then therefore?
What did they say about the person that was crucified?
Hello.
What did they say about the person that was crucified? Who did he look like? Who did he present as?
But he wasn't Jesus, so he would
trans woman
have ascended into heaven and left the luminosity. It would
be
a lookalike.
Oh, that's terrible.
You can say that, but you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, wait, I don't know.
Normal people. They said it was a body double, someone who looked like Jesus. Normal people don't leave a luminous imprint on the shroud they put on them at the point of death. So the lookalike wouldn't have done that.
Wait, I'm just curious. Can you give me the study?
I don't know the name.
Thanks so much for the $2 from the Unknown Freaks. Crash out over healthcare. Dude, I keep getting calls all day. It's fucking crazy. But
name of it off the top of my head, but it was
I would,
recently completed.
sure, I would love to.
You should investigate it. You'd probably become a Christian if you're being objective.
Guys, let's do it. Guys, hey, real quick. Let's do a 2-minute closing statement. We're gonna start with you, Nick. We're gonna get on to the next topic. Go ahead.
I got to say, thank God for this moderation, unironically, because it's actually keeping the conversation somewhat a little bit more organized.
So, I mean, the good news is we just had a platform to demonstrate the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus. You do have real archaeological evidence like the Shroud of Turin. You have the Gospels. You have the secular historians. No serious historian would testify that Jesus wasn't real or didn't live or wasn't crucified. And if Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, it's because of the well-documented martyrdom of the disciples of the early church. If you would go to your death testifying that something, a lie or fabrication didn't happen, then maybe you believe they all faked it. I think that you go to your death only if you saw something true. And even still, people won't tell the truth if they're afraid of the mafia. You'd only go to your death telling the truth if it was God in the flesh. So I think that's just all obvious. With all that being said, we should have a Catholic government. We all have a conscience. The moral law comes from God. It's also written on our hearts, and we know it. And that's where our intuition comes from. The subjective idea that we get from rationality or empiricism that murder is wrong, that rape is wrong, the same objections agnostics and atheists raise against the Bible. And the thing is about the Old Testament, if people are turned off by that, it really just amounts to the problem of evil itself. Evil exists in the world that was created by a good God. This is answered by the philosophical concept of the privation of evil. Prior to the coming of Jesus Christ, it was a world without the good, and therefore it was evil, and thus there was no mercy, compassion, those sorts of things. But it's a very complicated topic. I hope people aren't turned off when they hear, bad things happen in the ancient world, therefore there can be no God. It's obviously false. So that's just the long and short of the whole Christian debate distilled.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go to give my closing statement.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
First, about the Shroud of Turin, anyone watching, feel free to look up any of the multiple groups of scientists that have dated the Shroud of Turin. Not a single one of them have been able to place a date on the Shroud of Turin from a point when Jesus was alive. So that's automatically thrown out of the window. About Nick's second point there, specifically about the people that went to their deaths after seeing the quote-unquote resurrected Jesus. This is something we see in all religions. I want you to go ahead and look at Prophet Muhammad's grandson in the context of the Islamic religion. He was martyred because of his beliefs in his grandfather being a prophet of God. That's present always. If this makes a religion true, all religions would be true. About your third point about the historicity of Jesus Christ, we have no first-hand accounts about Jesus Christ or his life. I do think that he was a real man that lived and died via a crucifixion, but Josephus, Tacitus, all these people came long after he died, and I think it's crazy that you're going to sit here and say that we have sufficient historical evidence to justify that Jesus Christ died and resurrected from the dead, but we don't have historical evidence to justify that the Holocaust happened and 6 million Jewish people died. I can give you a source right now that 6
That's a fair argument.
million people did die. In fact, I could give you 200. For everyone watching, look up holocaustcontroversies.blogspot.com. It will give you an index to publish evidence on mass extermination in Auschwitz in Germany. There will be over 200 sources there, much more abundant evidence than what he could ever give for the existence of Jesus Christ and the idea that he's our God. So already contradictory there. And about the last point about the problem of evil, you said that the privation of evil was the fact that there wasn't a lot of good before Jesus came. No, the privation of evil is an ontological status of evil. Okay, so you don't know what your philosophical terms mean. You're also confusing what the problem of evil is. Okay, right? I would say my problem of evil would be the fact
20 seconds,
God's all good, God's all perfect, and God's all powerful, and nothing evil should exist in the world that we live in. I wish that we could have a longer discussion about this, man. Get into philosophy, show you that you don't know shit. But I guess we're gonna move on to the next topic.
Thank you, guys. All right, we're gonna do topic number 3. Is
homosexuality bad? And we'll start with Dean again. I'll give you.
Oh, is this like an unironic? No, of course not. I don't. This is like an unironic talking point. Okay.
3-minute intro. Same thing in 3 minutes. And then I like the free flowing. It's been good so far.
I probably won't
go ahead. Go ahead, Dean.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so I probably won't need all 3 minutes. It'll be pretty easy. I don't think that being gay is wrong because there's no good reason to believe that it is wrong. There's just multiple arguments that they could probably give me. One would just be gay wrong because Sky Daddy says so in the Bible. Another argument could give me something to do with like telos, like the natural.
That's pretty much all they're going to say. Yeah, there are scientific reasons that gay people do exist. I mean, because some people will be like, well, they can't procreate, so it's wrong scientifically. Scientifically, I mean, if you look at any data, gay people tend to adopt other people's kids. Disproportionately higher, which suggests that the reason that maybe gay people exist is to take care of kids that would be considered unwanted in society, whether it's through adoption or funneling their resources from family to family, or from a family into other people in the family, right? There is a actual legitimate thing that happens where for the more boys that a woman has, she births, the higher chance that they are gay. And that could potentially suggest that they exist to try to funnel resources into the children of the straight parents. So there's perfectly fine reasons. Either way, there's nothing wrong with it. As long as it's an adult consensual relationship, it literally does not matter. So there's no reason why being gay is bad.
Function of our bodies would indicate that we have a prescriptive purpose on how we're supposed to use them. That's not how we're supposed to use them. I'd say that doesn't exist. At the end of the day, my stance is clear. Being gay is not wrong because there's no reason for it to be wrong. And I guess we'll just hear Nick's reason why it is wrong, because that's probably where we're going to start. So I can see the rest of my time. Take it away, Nick.
Yeah, I love the Sky Daddy thing. It's like the idea that there's a transcendent God. You think there's a man in the clouds, and I don't because I listen to science. It's just like the most brain dead new atheist. I'm surprised this stuff still exists.
I mean, it's I guess it's simple because how much more of a complicated thing do you need to say? But okay.
You told me that
again, most of this is just going to be trying to meme this other guy's argument because he has no real argument. So that's just like kind of the consistent pattern of just kind of memeing.
Kill a baby if God told you to.
Hey, Dean. Yeah, 3 minutes are up. Dean, no more interruptions.
Yeah, silence while I attack your position. So here's the thing. Okay, the homosexuality thing, I mean, we could argue that the faculty of the reproductive organs is to have sex. The purpose of them is to have sex. We have sexual organs to have sex, and sex is for the purpose of insemination, procreation. It's what it is. It's not, we can't get too creative. It always ends the same way, and it's made for one purpose. We could argue that there is a prohibition of it in the Catholic Catechism and in the Bible, but I don't even think we need to go that far. It's really a question of whether we think people can do whatever they want. And this
as long as it's not harming somebody else, yes.
gets back to morality. If your conception of morality comes from, a vague idea of empathy or do no harm, against harm, then you would say there's nothing necessarily wrong with suicide, drug abuse, homosexuality, gluttony.
So, I guess we'll start with suicide. I mean, that's your best argument. It's definitely destructive to people around you and upsetting to people around you. I guess that's your best argument that you could come up with that. But you probably shouldn't advocate for a society where people take their own lives. I mean, that's devastating to people that are around you. And it very clearly indicates you have a mental health problem because nobody wants to take their own lives. That's a rational thinking human being. What else did he say?
Laziness, all kinds of other harm. Then you would say there's nothing necessarily wrong with suicide, drug abuse.
Drug abuse is destructive to you, your body, and other people around you. People who do drugs, unfortunately, tend to have like disproportionately higher events of stealing. And, it's definitely, okay.
Homosexuality.
Yeah, homosexuality is nothing wrong with that.
Gluttony.
Being fat is a burden on the system. Unfortunately, like I'm fat. Like there's something wrong with it. Doesn't mean we have to punish it to the degree of drug abuse or addiction or murder. But we should have a society that works towards people not being as fat because it's destructive. It's self-harm in some capacity. And it's a burden on our system.
Laziness, all kinds
laziness, I think that one's a given. Being lazy means you're not being productive or contributing to society.
of other behaviors because people say, we own our bodies, we can make decisions, we're empowered.
Right, but if you could do whatever you want, but if you want the buy-in to living in our society is that you would follow and adhere to certain rules of some collective rules that are better for everybody overall.
We can kind of do whatever we want as long as we don't interfere with other people, as long as there's not an imposition on other people. That's really the fundamental premise. I reject that premise. I think that because we're created beings, we're created with a sense of dignity. Our souls and our bodies are connected. And God wants us to be dignified. And I think we all recognize that there are things that are dignified and things that are undignified. It's undignified to be an addict. It's undignified to be lazy. It's undignified to undergo a transgender surgery. It's undignified to do plastic surgery. And yes, it is undignified to engage in sodomy.
I find it really interesting. I find it very interesting that these shots at trans people from religious conservatives, only because there is this world where the thought process from somebody who's a religious individual that doesn't believe trans people are valid is that it's a delusion. It couldn't possibly be true that you might have been born in the wrong body and it's just a delusion. And that's what makes it wrong. But these same people will say that you can absolutely go to heaven if you violently rape kids as long as you say, I'm sorry. And so it's which one is the delusion? I really, I would say neither of them, generally speaking. But I mean, you want to sit here and say trans people seem more preposterous than believing in God. Yeah, anyway, kids shouldn't get surgeries if he mentioned it specifically to kids. But yeah, is that what he said? Kids or
dignified to undergo a transgender surgery?
Oh no, he didn't say anything about kids. But
it's undignified to do plastic surgery, and yes, it is undignified to engage in sodomy. What is it? 1 minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Anything that's not vaginal sex is sodomy. Just so I don't know if he knows that.
So sodomy is something that is violent. It's filthy. It's undignified, and I think it's a travesty. It's such an unfortunate thing. People celebrate it to wave these flags, but they're waving a flag of really a filthy and violent and gross act.
What is it? What is violent about it? I don't know.
That I think anybody has a natural sense of morality would reject it.
No.
So I mean, I just think it's disgusting, and things that are disgusting are probably wrong.
Okay. Well, I mean, you probably don't think it's disgusting because I think that he's a closeted homosexual. And then also, thinking something is gross doesn't mean that it needs to be illegal. I don't know if that's a hot take.
Okay, your argument, it's disgusting, therefore it's wrong. Hey, Nick, got a question. Is shitting disgusting?
No. Shitting is wrong. Good point.
It is kind of a good point. If shitting is disgusting, then that means that shitting is wrong, right? It's actually a good point. It's very simple.
That's a good point.
That's the argument you gave.
Oh, was there a super chat that I missed earlier? What did I miss? Oh, shit. Dude, how did I miss Jack's super chat? I think I was banning people from the chat because they were pissing me off. Sorry, brother. Thank you for the $5. I just look at the chat. My bad. It's been chaotic today. Thank you for the $5 from Jack Esposito. Hey, Papa, got crazy news. Someone got stabbed to death. Jesus Christ. in the abdomen or in the abandoned building next to my workplace just 2 days ago. Stay safe out there. Oh my God. What the fuck? Are you the one doing all these things? Jesus Christ.
I never thought of it
I'm sorry. I didn't read that earlier, brother.
that way.
You said it's disgusting, therefore it's wrong. Yeah, shitting. That's pretty.
It's a pretty good heuristic. Yeah, it's a pretty good. Well, and look.
That's the account.
Well, if you want to, okay, if you want to talk about,
it's literally
I mean, it's a good argument. I mean, what's the counter?
so fucking simple. Like, I mean, if your argument is, oh, this is aesthetically unpleasing, therefore I find it disgusting, therefore I'm going to describe it as being morally wrong.
This is
it's,
just
first
like
of all,
so low IQ.
Do you mind if, no, it's not low IQ. You
Go ahead.
Just saying it's low IQ is not enough. You have to give a reasonable argument.
Yeah, go ahead. Explain your syllogism.
Yeah, sure. So anyways, here's my perspective. You're just saying that you find it disgusting given your subjective mental states that lead you to the conclusion that it is something that's non-aesthetic. I think it's funny that you're giving me this argument when you've been chirping down my throat for the last 30 minutes that we need to rely on some objective standard to tell us what's right and wrong, even when we disagree. But now you're like, oh, my mental states are not conducive towards me finding this to be aesthetically pleasing, therefore it's morally wrong. It's just a little bit, out of reach for you. But overwhelmingly, I don't even know if I should give a dignified response to what you just told me. Nick just said, I don't like it, therefore it's wrong. You also referenced a couple other things there about just engaging in dignified actions. Once again, that's another, I don't like it, therefore it's wrong. Right? I could say that being Nick Fuentes and talking about how 6 million people didn't die at the Holocaust is dignified, and all of a sudden, in my worldview, you're going to fucking jail, right? But I think that if you're going to make the argument that it's either wrong to be gay or it's wrong to engage in same-sex intercourse, you're going to have to give me a little bit more reason than the fact that it doesn't align with what's aesthetically pleasing to you.
Are you gay? Are you gay just to establish for the debate?
No, I'm straight. Unlike you,
Okay.
I'm empathetic. I'm able to place myself in other people's shoes and see the world from a perspective and realize.
You
what's
empathize. You
wrong.
I think that Nick is gay as fuck, just to be clear. But
place
Either
yourself
one,
in
I'm
gay
not gay.
people's shoes.
Yeah, and I can
Do you
see how
imagine
terrible
what it would
people
be
you are.
like to be gay?
No, I imagine what it would be like to be at the receiving end of your fucking
The receiving
tyranny.
end.
Of
You
your fucking
empathize with the
tyranny.
receiving end, huh?
this is all Nick's gonna do is he's just gonna meme the situation. His audience is gonna eat it up.
What is
Yeah,
that like?
Of like the tyranny of you and the other like white Christians that just
Oh,
come out here and
tyranny.
say, gay so bad, therefore we're gonna persecute these people.
They're going to play off this guy as being triggered when he does. Like, this guy's very smart, obviously. I would say optically. Is that a word? Fuck, I can't even speak today. This is what Nick's entire platform depends on, triggering people. So Nick's got him triggered to an extent, and he's right about everything he's saying, by the way. This Dean guy's right. But because of that, his audience is gonna be like, oh, we got him, we triggered him. So, but yeah, Nick is totally gay. Like, he was like talks about jerking off to femboys and fucking trans people and shit. He's total. The people that are the most aggressive against gay people tend to be the gayest people.
Therefore,
If you're
we're gonna
empathizing with gay man, are you
going.
okay? Interesting. Do you think about like gay sex? Do you empathize with gay sex at all?
Why is it always the
Things like
homophobic
that?
straight men that want to talk about gay sex?
It's a debate about
Yeah,
homosexuality.
you're talking, but you're getting a little bit too personal, Nick. I have a girlfriend. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm just asking. So
I
when
know.
said-
I know.
I'm just
It's
asking.
One of the many.
So here's the thing. I didn't say if it's disgusting, it's wrong.
I think that he was crushing on like an Asian girl, like a conservative Asian girl, but because she was Asian, Nick couldn't date her because he is supposed to hate anybody that's non-white. I mean, I imagine like himself. I don't know.
What I mean is, it's a pretty good heuristic that something is disgusting. If something is found to be disgusting, it's probably wrong. And you brought up fecal matter. You said shit. I'll say fecal matter. I'll be polite. Fecal matter is offensive to us. It has an offensive odor. It has an offensive look, and so on. Why is that? Why do we find it disgusting? Why are we repelled by it? Because if we were to handle it and touch it, we would get sick and die. If we were to eat it, we would get sick and die. If we don't properly dispose of it, it would poison the community and we would die.
It is a little funny because there are pills. They're actual poop pills. They're other people's healthy poop that people eat. They take the pill so that you have. Apparently, it's good for your digestive system. It's like a legitimate pill. It's fucking disgusting, but it's actually legitimate. So you shouldn't eat poop, but it is a treatment for some people to get their gut health back into under control, to take a pill of other people's poop. This is like a real thing. Isn't that fucking crazy? Poop pill. It's like a doctor-described thing. Poop pills are capsule form of fecal micro whatever transplant, a procedure that involves delivering healthy stool from a donor to a patient. This is a real thing. It's just other people's poo. You eat it. Microbiome. Yeah. So isn't that interesting? So
the act of excreting waste is not an evil act. But fecal matter in itself, it disgusts us on an instinctual basis for a very good reason. Okay, and that's why it's a heuristic. And we find the same thing about surgery and blood, why? And about snakes and about spiders. There's a reason for that. And the same thing is true about homosexuality. Now, it's like, you look at the homosexual act, okay?
I don't, unironically. All jokes aside, I don't actually look at it, Nick. I don't know if you do that.
If
You might not respond to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Sure. Yeah. You're just further like I look at it.
Further what? You're just not hearing
me.
me.
So I am. So this same intuition,
you're not empathizing.
the same intuition that you're describing to me, and like the other how many people are watching, I don't even know, is essentially that you have this innate driven psychological response that when you look at this, it's bad. You kind of related this to looking at shit, and because when you look at shit, it's bad. You know that's like driven via the fact that if you eat it, it could give you like bacteria, it can make you sick, whatever. Okay. But here's my point: the same innate like prejudice driven response that you are holding towards gay people that leads you to the conclusion that it's thereby wrong is the same innate driven prejudice response from white supremacists towards black people. So what?
Yeah, but he's going to agree with that.
What would you say to a white supremacist giving you the same exact argument that you're giving me about gay people, but about black people? What if they made the argument that they just feel on some innate behavioral level that it is just wrong to be black? When I look at black people, I feel this way and that way, the same way that you're describing to me right now. And the reason that I think this point is so important to bring up here is, well, you're just describing your prejudice.
Okay, well, I would say, first of all...
Well, I mean, that's not going to help him change his mind, is it?
I don't have a prejudice against gay people. I really don't. I'm describing the act. I'm describing the act of what they're doing, which is filthy. If you look at a guy walking down the street, for the most part, like let's say it was a guy wearing like guy's clothes, but he was gay, you wouldn't know he was gay, and your disgust reflex wouldn't be triggered. But when you think about sodomy, which involves a whole host of gross stuff, I mean, they have to take drugs to loosen their buttholes. They have.
Who has to take drugs? What are you talking about? What?
To flush out their buttholes of poo because the penis is going where poo is. This is disgusting stuff. And the idea of it's disgusting. And it's the act which is disgusting. So it's got nothing really to do with prejudice or anything like that. It's that the act itself,
yeah,
I think, hang on. And by the way, it's also universal. It's universal and it's instinctual. There was a study that was done, for example, that said that men who witness...
What is he talking about? I mean, you might have to use lube, but what the fuck is he talking about?
Two gay men kissing have the same disgust reflex as seeing maggots. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to get you to recognize that.
Can you not interrupt me? Why interrupt me every single time? I'm trying to make a point.
A white business owner in the 1960s would have said the same thing that you're saying about gay people right now about black people going into their business.
No,
this is not gonna resonate with his audience, though. Yes, they don't care. They're fine with being discriminating against black people. They hate black people, and Nick's audience hates black people.
To a question, the reason why I'm interrupting you here is because
it's a false syllogism. It's a false syllogism. You're bringing in white supremacy to homosexuality is a behavior.
Can I tell you particularly? I know homosexuality is not a behavior.
It is a behavior.
Okay, so what do you say?
Well, what is obviously homosexuality is a behavior? It means if a man is attracted to another man but never has sex, is he really homosexual?
Oh wait, I have a question. Was Jesus straight?
I don't think he had a sexuality because he was God.
Okay, so it's perfect not to be attracted to women because Jesus was perfect and he wasn't attracted to women?
What are these false... It's always just like bullshit.
Oh, so, I have a question.
You don't like gay people? What about white people not liking black people? Was Jesus straight?
What'd you say here?
Huh?
You said if you never engage in gay sex, then you're not gay. So, Nick...
I didn't say that. I said homosexuality is sex, is an act. It's an act.
Oh, okay. So you said if you don't engage in gay sex, you're not homosexual because homosexual is predicated on the action.
I didn't say that. I said it's an action.
Yeah, so you're telling me if you don't engage in that action, then you're not that. Dude, how fucking... Do I need to write it on a piece of paper?
If you are a person that engages in that act, you are that person.
Right. So no, what I'm telling you is that sexual orientations are not defined upon the actions that you...
I think Nick is just making sure he tells himself that since he does love the thought of guys fucking him in the ass, but since he doesn't let them, he's not gay. And that's like his cope.
Engage in.
What are they defined on?
On your attractions, right? And I'll give you a really good reason to believe this. Nick, at what age did you lose your virginity? Like 25?
I haven't. I'm Catholic.
Oh shit. Nick,
I'm going to get married.
Nick, you're not straight by your definition because you've never engaged in the action of heterosexual intercourse.
True. I'm asexual. I'm an asexual.
You can't get out of this one. So you're going to make a joke because you know you can't get out of this.
It's not a joke.
Wait, so Nick, you're not straight?
Not yet. But I will be.
Here, folks, Nick Fuentes is not straight. Nick Fuentes is not straight, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make that one clear. I want to make that one very clear.
That's good.
Okay. I don't think he's necessarily winning this optical argument here, but okay.
That was good. So do you now...
It's just like a weird... It's gone to like a weird direction.
See why we should predicate...
My sexuality is incel. It's involuntarily celibate.
So do you now see why we should predicate the definition of like straight and gay based upon...
No, I think homosexuality is an act.
Oh, okay. So if you then you think being straight's an act too. All right, so Nick Fuentes is not okay. That's the absurdity that I'll reach. If you want to say that like being straight is predicated based upon the action, then go for it. It just means that Nick Fuentes isn't straight. Okay, and then also I want to talk about that action. So
you're empathizing with gay people. If you're envisioning yourself being gay, you're not straight either, buddy. If you're empathizing, if you're getting in their head, getting in their shoes, getting in their wherever.
Well, no, Nick is like legitimately gay. That's the whole reality.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it seems like you're kind of all the above. But
Nick,
but this is really childish. The question is whether it's moral.
Let me respond to that.
Please tell me about your empathy. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, sure. So that's
which partner do you empathize more with? The one that's on top or the one that's on bottom? I'm curious.
Right.
Where's the empathy directly?
Right. I got a question. God's all knowing, right?
Here we go. Yes.
So God knows what it's like to get fucked in the ass by two dudes. So if God empathizes with it, why can't I?
That's great. Very good. Very good. No, God doesn't empathize with those people. God casts those people off.
Terrible. Oh, that's so bad.
That's right. It's very low IQ humor.
It's very low IQ humor. No, you're getting fucking dunked on repeatedly. I thought you'd be a better debater.
You're the guy that said you're empathizing with gay people, and you're saying that poo isn't filthy or something?
Oh no, so once again, my argument is that you have absolutely no reason to believe that being gay is wrong, and the existence of yourself alongside others just like you that hold this baseless, trivial prejudice has led to generations of members of the LGBT. One moment, let me cook. That led to generations of members
of the LGBT community.
Let me cook. You're
Finish
getting a little
the
bit
acronym.
frustrated. Sir, do I need to put the polka dots?
No. Give us the whole acronym.
Yeah, so generations of the LGBTQ plus community, right, have lived under an oppressive system because people like you like to open up the front door of their house and then scream and shout how wrong.
I mean, this is true. It's just that this isn't really going to resonate with Nick Fuentes' audience, just to be clear. So
it is to love another person in a consentful adult and non-incestuous relationship. It is absolutely fucking insane to me. And here you're gonna say, oh, Dean, you're boring me because I'm able to empathize with other humans. Is that like a new concept?
Yeah, no, because you're a really good person. Being in favor of gay sex means you're a really good person and you empathize with people and care. It has nothing to do with whether you believe there's a natural law or anything and things we ought to do or not do with our bodies. It's because you're a really fucking wholesome, good person. You're a wholesome chungus.
What reason do you have to believe, right, that we ought not?
It's bad. Look, homosexuality is bad for people. I mean, it's an unnatural act because it's
how is it bad for people?
Incompatible.
Wait, can you
it's
define
unnatural.
unnatural?
It's filthy. It's violent. It doesn't work. I mean, what is a sexual act?
Wait,
what is a sexual act?
10 minutes, guys. 10 minutes on this topic.
Yeah, like the sexual act.
It's contrary to its purpose, contrary to its nature.
Okay, so you're saying it's contrary to its nature. So you're saying that like every part of your body has a nature. The nature of the penis isn't to enter into an asshole.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, what's the nature of your lips?
To do everything that a lip does.
Like eat food, talk, speak.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's wrong to kiss your girlfriend because that's going to get.
No, they're made for that too. They're made for that. That has a purpose in sexuality as well.
If you could say that your lips are made for kissing your girlfriend, why can't I say that the pee-pee's made for being inserted into the asshole?
Because the asshole isn't meant to be penetrated. Because when that happens, it has long-term health effects. You could look, there are a lot of like ex-homosexuals that talk about how they have long-term, I mean, I don't want to get graphic, but they have to wear diapers. They have to wear diapers because it's not natural.
I think old people in general tend to wear diapers. It's just kind of part of life, no? What are we talking about?
Well, unnatural.
Yeah, if you're persistently doing something that leads to long-term chronic problems like that, yeah.
Okay, wait. I think
also, it's dirty, and that's why there's disease that results from that as well.
I think that this is another trivial argument.
I mean, a lot of jobs do the exact same thing. They lead to long-term negative impacts. Does that mean that we shouldn't do HVAC or we shouldn't just work in general? Those things are wrong and unnatural. I don't understand. Just because your butthole might get loose, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing to do. But okay.
Would you say that it's wrong to play the piano because you're unnaturally using your fingers to hit the keys that could lead to long-term health effects?
No, because it's not contrary to its nature.
Oh wait, but it leads to long-term negative.
Well, what nature were we born with? The nature of doing piano?
Health effects, and some people it can lead to like their hands seizing up, or I forget the particular word, but it essentially leads to very like bad long-term health effects like within the hands. So like given your logic, why wouldn't you say that it's wrong to play the piano? Granted, right, that it's not in the nature, right? That was a trivial assumption, and it leads to negative long-term health effects.
Well, it's obvious because I mean, what do we call the penis? It's a sexual organ. It's for the purpose of sex.
Well, you also pee out of it, just to be clear. So
fingers are a little bit different. Lips are a little bit different. They have all kinds of different potential utilities and things like that. But the sexual organ is directed towards the sexual function. I mean, why do we? The reason the penis is shaped like it is. The reason. Okay, now you're going to interrupt me. The reason that it's shaped like it is and positioned where it is and all those things, it's for one purpose. The reason that it, I mean, not to get graphic, but the reason it does all the things it does is for the purpose of insemination. It's not for the purpose of inseminating a person's colon or rectum. And by the way, a butthole has literally one purpose. Okay, a butthole has one purpose, which is to excrete waste. Not
so
for
do you mind if I give you my
like
stance on this? I'm gonna give you
yeah, let's hear. Well, it is a debate, so I wouldn't mind that at all, actually.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think that we could prescriptively define the function of like any part of our body, or really like anything for that matter. We could only descriptively define them. Like I could give you a good analogy here. Like if you went to like a hardware store, like Lowe's or Home Depot, right, and you went to buy a hammer, and the instruction manual on this hammer tells you that it's supposed to put nails into wood. Well, I mean, all of a sudden you are misusing the hammer if you're not putting nails in the wood. But if you go into the middle of the forest and you find a rock in the shape of a hammer identical to the one in Lowe's, you're not doing anything wrong regardless of how you use it because there wasn't any intention behind its design. And that's exactly what I would say about the human anatomy. Right? There was no conscious intention behind the design of the human anatomy. I think that we could descriptively define how we.
Well, I mean, I think we understand that penises are generally meant to have sex, and sex feels good because to procreate, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't have sex just to feel good. Most people do. Most of the times you're going to have sex is to feel good. I don't think that's an inherently negative or bad thing. So
use parts of our body. And I think you kind of implicitly conceded to this earlier when you told me that it's in my nature to use my hands to play the piano or to use my mouth to kiss my girlfriend. Those are not intentful, prescriptive claims that you're making about the function or use of my hands. These are going to be descriptions about how we can use my hands, about how we can use my lips. And that's exactly how I'd reference, right, these sexual organs. Okay? And the only way for you to justify your claim that there is intention behind the design of the human anatomy to justify that there's incorrect uses of it would be God. And of course, I dispute the existence of God. You couldn't prove that God exists. If we had 30 minutes, I could be able to give you an argument to show that it's logically impossible for the Christian God to exist. So I think what it's best for you to do right now is either concede your position or just say it outright. You think being gay is wrong because God said so. You think being gay is wrong because you truly believe that God built our bodies to function in a particular manner that is adjacent to the use that you like to describe to our fingers or to our mouths. Say it out loud.
Well, like I said, if you were listening at the very beginning of my opening statement, I said we are created and we are ensouled, and our souls and our bodies have to be treated with dignity. And yes, you're 100% right. I mean, if you believe that, if you're a nihilist or a materialist, and you believe there's only matter and everything is subjective, then yeah, like there's no problem with putting this in there and that over there. But if you think that we are created, and if you think there is such a thing as a natural law and a moral law, then we would have to abide by what we can assume are these functions, or what we are told are the functions by revelation. If you believe in a religion with revelation, then it's revealed. If you believe in a religion which is philosophical, then you have to deduce it rationally. But when you look at something like the anus, E. Michael Jones has a famous quote about this. The anus is not a sex organ. It's obviously not. It's there for one purpose. And I think, we all sort of know, like, yeah, of course you can do these things. No one's arguing that you can't. Of course you can. It can be done. You're capable of doing it. The question is, should we do these things? And if these things are contrary to their nature, and there's evidence that this is the case because they result in problems, then we probably shouldn't. And you don't even necessarily need to believe in God to understand that. I think that, hang on, I'm not totally finished. I think that even if you don't believe in God, I think there are a lot of people that actually don't believe in God that still find it to be a kind of degenerative, indulgent, undignified practice. I'm not finished yet. You're very disrespectful in that way. I'm so respectful, and you're being very rude the way you're chirping with these little interruptions.
It's so funny because he interrupts too, but every time he gets interrupted, he turns into like full victim mode. It's I think it's because like he does it with Destiny, and his audience is like, yeah, you're right, you are a victim, Nick Fuentes, and I think that's where he gets that feedback from. So it's all just like, kind of jerking off his audience in this one.
And the thing is, let's imagine what it is. When they're walking down the street waving that flag, it represents a filthy, violent act where you're...
Well, no, it represents loving whoever you want. It's nothing to do with anything else, but okay.
Evacuating fecal matter out of your bowels to make room for sex, and it's never fully gone. And this is why they get AIDS, because you're putting a sexual organ where the shit is. And that's just...
Well, no, like the reason I would say why there's more AIDS in gay community is really just like gay men, because dudes in general, guys like to have sex more than women do. And well, not necessarily like to have sex. Guys, in my experience, are more open to having more casual sex than women necessarily are, and so having more casual sex could potentially lead to spreading things like AIDS. It's nothing to do with gay people. It has everything to do with, in my opinion, men. Men are a little crazy. Men will fucking stick their dick in anything. You know what I mean? So I don't think it really has anything to do with gay people, just to be clear. I think that there's a group that's, I think the highest group that has AIDS is not even gay men, to be absolutely honest with you. Highest group have AIDS. Let's see, I'm trying to look it up. Oh, apparently it's black men, just to be clear. Okay, I just looked that up. This is what this says. The rate, maybe this is black men of the highest of any race and gender, followed by Latino men. Oh, this is just boys, or excuse me, this is just this isn't based on sexuality, but yeah, it's a lot of guys. I don't think that it's a lot of lesbians. That was the point that I was trying to make. So
just something that, like, yeah, is objectively gross, I think, for very good reasons, which is a pretty good heuristic, that it's also immoral. And so, people that are same-sex attracted, people that are tolerant of same-sex attracted persons, and people that are not, I think should all be able to recognize that sodomy is something that is, there's something deeply wrong with it, and it should be avoided, even if you're not religious.
Let's not do closing.
It's a very virgin argument, and I fuck my wife in the ass sometimes. Not really too recently, though. She's...
Statements 1 minute each. I'll give 1 minute to Dean and then 1 minute to Nick. We'll go on to the next topic.
Great, thank you so much. So Nick Fuentes made two arguments. The first argument that Nick Fuentes made was that I think it's gross, therefore it's wrong. In Nick's closing statement, what he will not do is give me the logical distinction with him saying gay gross, therefore wrong, and a white supremacist saying being black gross, therefore wrong. There's no logical distinction between the way in which those two beliefs were formed, and he won't be able to give it to me. The second argument that Nick made here was that we can deduce that it's not within the teleological, the teleological use of these sex organs to use them in such a manner where the penis is inserted into the anus, because doing so can reap long-term negative outcomes. Okay, right? He will not be able to give me the difference between saying this is why gay sex is wrong, and me saying, well, it's wrong to play the piano because when you use your hands to do so, this could reap negative long-term outcomes such as arthritis. So those two arguments alone show us all that Nick's logic here is unreliable because of the absurdities in which they yield, right? If the same logic that you're using to justify that being gay is wrong could lead a white supremacist to the conclusion that being black is wrong, and lead a dumbass to the conclusion that playing...
But this is the thing, just to be clear, his whole audience thinks that these things are true. So this doesn't, this isn't really a compelling argument to Nick Fuentes' audience, just to be clear. In this conversation, it kind of makes, if your goal is to, kind of speak against Nick Fuentes' arguments, it's not necessarily going to work to change his audience. But, he's not wrong, I'm just saying.
Playing the piano is wrong. Maybe your logic isn't that sound. And I think that's going to be my closing statement. If Nick Fuentes was honest with us here, folks, he would tell us that being gay is wrong because he's just a little bit prejudiced, don't you think?
Yes, I think that's part of it, but...
Okay, that's been over. Nick, I'll give you 90 seconds to close here.
All right, yeah. I don't know why we got to do the debate club stuff. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what Nick Fuentes is going to try and... It's like, this is very... We're on Aiden Ross, okay, bitch? This is Aiden Ross live. There's no rules here, okay, other than the time limit. My closing statement is very simple. It's just like how I started. If you believe, and I tend to think that every decent person does, even if you're not Christian or necessarily religious, if you believe that we are more than just matter meaning that we have souls, meaning that there is something deeper, there's a ghost in the machine that is a true source of identity, if you believe that the universe is created and we're created, then you believe that moral conduct is not just about avoiding harm or hurting people. There's also a way to conduct your moral life independently. And
Well, I mean, that is a pretty big part of it.
it's how you treat yourself. It's your actions. We all understand there's an idea of discipline, cleanliness, all those kinds of things. And the idea of sodomy, which people should think of when they think of homosexuality, I think according to any decent person in any culture, is something that is violent, filthy, and those things tend to be wrong. It's contrary to the nature of sex, what we know the anus and the penis to be for, or for lesbians for that matter, it's contrary to the purpose of those things. And I would say that on top of all that, you have evidence that this is the case because there's such a low incidence of it. It's a very small percentage of the population, has a very high coincidence with mental illness, and there's a very common family pattern that produces that behavior, that disposition.
What's the family pattern that produces this behavior? Also, I don't know if there is an association with mental illness, but it's perfectly reasonable to suggest that the reason why there would potentially be an association with LGBTQ and mental illness is specifically because they get hated on so heavily in different family units, which Nick would obviously agree with because he believes it would be okay to hate on gay people. So, yeah.
Hey, you got about 10 seconds, Nick. 10 seconds.
Okay, it's a very particular kind of behavior that's a response to things. It should be avoided. I think any decent person realizes that.
Hey, Aiden.
Yes.
No, there's no more on the subject, Dean.
Hold on. What does Dean want to Yes, Dean.
Well, I mean, I would like to propose giving Nick
Dude, they have to mute their fucking mic when they're not talking.
another 60 seconds to respond to my closing statement. As I pointed out in my closing statement, he wouldn't respond to the arguments I gave, and he still didn't. So I just wanted to see if Nick wanted more time to do that. If not, we can move on, but he probably won't.
Can we give him 60 more seconds to actually respond? Okay, can we do the next topic?
we're
now?
gonna
That's
move
how
on
you
to
respond to your
the
stupid syllogism about white supremacy and the Holocaust and January 6th or whatever.
That's a damning non-answer. Let's go to the next topic.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to the next one. And then, Dean, you agreed to do immigration. We'll circle back to Kamala Trump after the last agreed upon subject. Is that cool?
Yeah, depending on what time it is, after we get it before anyway. I can carve out like an hour and a half. If we want to go ahead and
I'm really happy we can hear everything that he's saying because Sneeko and Aiden Ross are just so fucking smart when it comes. Like, why can't they just be more professional? You guys make millions and millions of dollars every fucking year. You guys can't figure out a way to have both of you have the earbud in listening to stuff, or learn how to turn your fucking mic off. It's just so fucking annoying.
The reason why I'm going to have to do a fifth topic that we both agree on, guys, is because a lot of the audience, is enjoying this and they're deep in on this. And I think it's almost, you guys are almost kind of tied right now. A lot of them are agreeing about a tie. So maybe a fifth. We'll see. Let's get to the fourth topic, though.
Well, how about this? Because we've been going about 30 minutes each subject, so for brevity's sake, why don't we do 20 minutes on the last subject and 20 minutes on immigration to keep
What's the last subject?
Are men superior to women?
Can we get already?
Okay, but if you agree to do immigration,
If I agree to immigration, we get that free. I feel like there's people out there that can represent immigration better than I can.
Because you're going to lose on that one.
I don't know. Like, your expertise.
okay, Nick, is that fine with you? If he doesn't want to do immigration, you want
I don't like
Let's just hold on a second. Dean, do you have a topic that a fifth
It's like I'm in a YMCA fucking swimming pool right now.
topic that you might want to cover, touch base on? Just something for the end. It doesn't have to be that long either, like maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, we can keep debating immigration. Let's do it.
All right. Okay. All right. So the next topic is
are men
Next, I'll
superior?
go with this time, let's do it.
Yeah, we'll start with are men
Debate
superior?
partner. You're gonna, it's not personal stuff. I just want you to know.
are men more superior?
No, just superior. Are men
Okay.
superior to women? We'll start with Nick. I'll give you 3 minutes and then 3 minutes to Dean.
Yeah, men are awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So are men superior to women? Sometimes. Depends on what it is. Are men generally physically stronger than women? Yes. Are men superior at giving birth? Probably not. Not a lot of them can. Some would say none can. Me personally, I don't care. Anyway, men and women have different things that they are better at. Women tend to be better at, I would say, emotions, dealing with emotions, having emotions, being more empathetic to other people. Men tend to be better at fighting and physical and manual labor. They're slightly different thought processes. Some of this is hard to communicate because, like for me, I'm married to a woman and we have different thought processes. Being married to my wife has been very, very positive for me in thinking a little bit differently, which has been very helpful. And the same would go for her. Being together allows us to both merge our minds in a way, and we parse a lot of the things that happen in our life with each other to figure out if this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. And both of us trust each other and love each other and all that gay shit. So, men and women just have things that they are sometimes better at. That's it. Do we need to legislate? No. As long as you're able to do a job, you should be able to get the job. But at the end of the day, yeah, sure. Men and women have differences. What a hot take. Superior, though, it's an intentionally divisive way to phrase the question.
Women suck and they're dumb and no, I'm kidding. Yeah, the thing is, though, men obviously were made to lead, and I do think that women should have a secondary role in society. I think that's absolutely true. I do believe in a fundamental equality between man and woman. You know, the Bible says that God created that man and woman, so we're both created with dignity and should be respected. And there's an equality before God that we both have. But we were created with two distinct and different natures. You know, they are two essential. Maleness and femaleness are essential about a person. They're essential to the soul. They're essential to the body. They come with a function. They come with a particular anatomy. They come with a brain chemistry. And as such, those things have social roles. The idea that these clearly two distinct categories, two essential types of people would be treated precisely the same or exactly the same in society, it belies the fact that they have two different natures. And I think it's obvious that men are celestial, they're individualists, they're rationalists, they're leaders, they're risk takers. They should be working, fighting, running society. Women are terrestrial, they're nurturers, they're caregivers. They should be the mothers. I don't think that they should be necessarily precluded from working, but I think that they should be encouraged first and foremost to be mothers for their benefit and for the benefit of society as a whole. And that's kind of the gist of my position.
Okay, so I have an opening statement. I guess I'll use it up. My position's pretty clear. No, one human being does not have more intrinsic moral value than another human being. I don't think that we could take this qualification of your gender identity or what's in between your legs and abstract that out to this norm of who's going to be better at leading. I'd say the qualification.
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with that too. I've had both women and male bosses, and they have like pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses. I mean, I've had just as many bad male bosses as female bosses. It's just there's different. I mean, okay.
Qualifications of determining who's better at leading, the qualifications of determining, half the shit that he named off over here is not.
Like, even if generally men are better at leading, there are women who are still perfectly very good at leading, so it doesn't really matter. Again, you shouldn't exclude somebody from a job because they have their gender or sex or whatever. As long as somebody is qualified for something, they should have a chance at doing it. Who gives a shit?
Not going to be, right, what's in between your legs or your gender identity, but rather other various traits. But I guess just to make this quick, we can kind of cut to the chase here. Why do you think men are better at leading than women? I would appreciate specifics. You kind of pointed out like different natures, different biological differences, neuroanatomy, etc. I want you to name the specifics. Maybe I could ask you a question here. What are the specific biological differences between men and women that make men better at leading than women?
Smarter, stronger, all of the above. No, I mean, in actuality, what?
Are those your two qualifiers?
No, I'm being a little bit.
He's pretending to joke, so he's trying to figure out what he should say to win this argument.
Funny.
Well, be honest with me here.
The reason why they're better leaders, well, one, I think they're really only qualified to be leaders because they are physically stronger.
Yeah. The problem with this question-answer combo thing that's going on is Nick Fuentes has never worked a regular job in his entire life in any meaningful capacity. I have. Okay. He has no life experience to be able to interact with to figure this out. I would argue that like a mixture in general, men and women can often have a very positive impact. I don't think that there should just be male bosses at a place or just female bosses at a place. It's not bad to have a mixture between the two. In general, people can soften each other up and have a positive impact. But he's never worked with anybody. He doesn't have a job. He does. This is his job, but he's always really had this. He's just turned 26. He's never worked a real job or a career job in his entire life. So he has no personal interaction with any of these things. He has no life experience. He still has the mentality of a child because he got a lot of money early on. He's never had to really struggle in his life in any meaningful capacity except for the fact that he loves penis and refuses to admit it. So he doesn't really know the answer to this question.
And, this is one of the reasons why we have a feminist society. It's because we live in a world where we have technology. In the old days, when there was fighting, it was very physical and it was very direct. It was hand-to-hand combat, and the only people that could do it were men. As such,
well, now we have technology, so good for us.
The militaries that were raised up were comprised of men. The people that fought and enforced sovereignty, law, borders, all those things were men. Necessarily, then, they're the decision makers.
Back then, we also had to farm for our own food and hunt. Now we don't. So should we get rid of that? Just technological advancement of making it easier to streamline and production of food. Should we get rid of that just because? Who gives a shit? Who really cares? We have technologies now that are able to shore up certain things. Why does it really matter?
So, the idea that it has something to do with what's between your legs, well, it has to do with what's between your legs and the fact that you have testosterone. You're physically stronger.
Sure. What does that matter when it comes to leading? Not everything that you lead is a fight. I don't understand.
And by the way, because you have testosterone, it means you're more aggressive. It means you're a bigger risk taker. Those are two things.
Or it could also mean when you get aggressive and when you get angry, you tend to make less rational decisions. You streamline your thought process into one thing, and you don't typically think about the optics of situations. Now, sometimes that can be a good thing. If you're in a fight or flight scenario, thinking about the one thing that's happening in front of you, it's not necessarily bad. It has its moments, but this idea that being more aggressive means that you're always going to be better or more effective at leadership is stupid. It's something that an idiot would say that has no idea, that's never been a leader, that really doesn't understand anything, never worked a real job. I mean, explain to me how being more aggressive, as somebody, if you've ever worked a job where you've had a leader, Have you responded better to bosses who are bark at you and are aggressive and are, you know, dismissive of you, or have you responded better to bosses who are nicer? It depends on the person, obviously. If you're a decent, respectful person, somebody being nicer to you and being more understanding and empathetic, you're going to resonate with them more. If you're a scumbag piece of shit that's ineffective at working, like, yeah, you're going to need somebody to bark at you a little bit more. The leadership style depends on what the person needs, but generally speaking, being a nice person to people, being a little bit charitable and not rude is a positive thing. So what he's saying is he's just talking. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Somebody's fed him talking points. He's never worked a real job before. He has no understanding of anything. He doesn't understand how to be a decent leader. He's just saying things
that are important. For a person to be a leader, they need to be able to stand against the crowd. And that means a risk taker. It means you need to be disagreeable. It involves a certain amount of aggression and a competitive.
You don't always need to be disagreeable. Like, what is leadership to you? Like fighting a war? Like, I don't understand. If you're a fucking manager at Walmart, like, you don't necessarily. You have to be okay with people not always agreeing with you, but women can do that too. I don't know if you guys know this.
That women simply lack. We all know that women are very agreeable, passive. Not all of them, but generally speaking, they are.
Some of them can be sometimes, and that could potentially be a struggle for some women. But I've also seen men who are fucking too agreeable or cowards as well, that are just trying to make everybody happy. I've seen it both ways.
They're peacemakers. They're more introspective. They're more emotional, less decisive. And all of that makes them worse as leaders. Now, there can be women that are good in particular leadership roles in certain circumstances, and individual women might. But as a general rule, because of their nature, they don't make good leaders.
Okay, thank you so much for your response there. Let's talk about it all. One of the reasons that you gave me that men are better at leading than women is physical strength. That is a totally and completely mute point. You would not be able to name me one social category in the world today where leadership is determined on purely physical strength. I also bet that you would not be willing to vote for a 15-year-old on steroids that can bench press 600 pounds over Donald Trump just because he's physically stronger. Another point that you brought up is that women are more emotional than men. I'd actually say that's false. 72% of people who commit suicide are men. 85% of people that abuse hard drugs as an emotional reaction to like particular external stimuli are men. We see that 95% of violent crimes are committed by men. We see that men are much more likely to
this is a good argument.
Start wars, to start genocides. We see that men are much more likely to engage in irrational, risk-adverse activities such as drunk driving, reckless driving, or gambling. Meanwhile, we see women have a higher IQ and EQ on average. Women outperform men in the context of...
Yeah, I think that men, the smartest men, like there's a bigger gap between like an intelligence gap. So women consistently are more intelligent than men apparently. But like men tend to be smarter. Generally, like, I don't know. Have you ever looked at like the intelligence curve? Women are all consistently intelligent, where we have like really dumb guys and like really smart guys. So yeah, for sure.
To school, going to it more, getting better grades and better degrees. And we see that women can actually deal with stress better than men. And that's one of those biological predispositions that you were talking about.
Maybe sometimes.
Women have thicker dendrites in their neuroanatomy compared to men, for the reason being that evolution has designed women to deal with childbirth, okay? Right? And that made them deal with stress better as well. That's why we see that female surgeons outcompete male surgeons.
I'll tell you, my anecdotal experience, women are not as good with stress as men, but that's just me personally. Like I said, I don't really care as long as you're an effective like boss. I really don't give a shit.
The JMA and the AMA did a massive study on 1.7 million patients on 6 continents and evaluated that if you're operated on by a male compared to a female, that you're more likely to die as a result of your surgery, and you're more likely to experience postoperative outcomes. So just a quick recap. Physical strength doesn't mean shit. I have bigger biceps than you. I bet you think you're a better leader. Emotional maturity. Women are more emotionally...
I mean, we did see his biceps at the beginning. That seems to be true, honestly. You can't really contest that one.
Mature than men. Then about intelligence and all the other shit you brought up. We could get into that, but I'll let you respond to the points that I brought up so far.
Yeah, so you said it was risk averse to gamble and drunk drive. It's the opposite. You said men are more willing to drunk drive and gamble. Those are risk taking activities, and
those are not good activities. Okay.
Risk taking is fundamental.
We're gonna go with the unironic defense of drunk driving. That's not a good thing.
Mental in leadership. That's why. Yeah, fair enough. And that's why, the richest people in the world are all men, because the entrepreneurs are men, because an entrepreneur is a risk taker.
Well, we also live in a society that did not let women do things. And that might be a factor. That might be a historic factor. I don't know, but I could be wrong. I'm just so stupid. Maybe I'm just so wrong about this.
And, one man's gambling is another man's entrepreneurship. One man's drunk driving is another man's self-destructive, obsessive, maniacal quest.
Wow, I love the argument in defense of drunk driving. Incredible stuff.
For building the best company or being the president or anything like that. It's absolutely essential. With regard to higher IQ and EQ, it is true that on average women have a higher IQ, but it's also true that the distribution is different. There's more geniuses among men. I mean, the curve, if you will, is flatter. So there's more men that are on the left side of the curve. There's more men on the right side of the curve. Although the average for women is higher, they don't have those outliers and those extremes. That's why you don't see a lot of female geniuses, and that's just true. I mean, earlier today in preparation for the debate, I asked ChatGPT, I said, name some female geniuses. They got to like 3 before they had to name a feminist. They did like Marie Curie, some ancient Neoplatonist no one ever heard of, and then it was like all the like first and second wave feminists. There's no female geniuses. There's very few female billionaires that didn't get their wealth outside of divorce. There's very few female heads of state. People say that's oppression, it's misogyny. And
There's probably a level of truth to that for sure, yo.
all know it's because they're not risk takers, they're not tough. With regard to
That's not necessarily true. I mean, I do think that there is absolutely like an aspect of women being pushed out of certain things. Absolutely. But also, I find it so interesting because I'm married, right? Nick's not married. He's never had sex. He just thinks about guys and he jerks his fucking dick off all the time. He's gay. But being married as a man has made me realize how powerful and how like productive it is to be with a woman. In general, I personally think that a man can like move the world, but they really can't without a woman. Like you really need a good guidance from a woman to be able to be an effective like person and leader. You need a woman to soften you up to be more effective. That's me personally, my personal anecdotal kind of scenario. But I've seen a lot in my life of like women softening men in a positive, productive way to help them be more rational in their movements. So when you talk about male billionaires, like I look at it and say like, well, who were they married to? Who was helping them in those capacities? When you dismiss like, oh well, these women just got a bunch of money, like Bill Gates, right? Or who the fuck was it? Whatever. I think it was Bill Gates or something, but God, they're or Jeff Bezos. I'm thinking of. Well, they got their wife is a billionaire now, but that's just because she easily got that by just being married to him. Okay, so do you not understand a support structure of like dealing with every day-to-day aspect? I would consider myself successful. I do pretty well. I wouldn't be successful without my wife. She's dealt with a lot of my frustrations and angers and venting and we'll say maturing as a content creator. Her existence has made it easier for me to make more money and been like she's supportive. And you really can't discount that role. Just because it's not as glamorous of a role than being the one that's in the forefront doesn't mean that it's not a very positive, necessary role. So, I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He just says things without actually knowing what he's saying.
they handle stress better. Yeah, maybe certain kinds of stress, but I think we all know women. And I think we all know that when women are put in stressful situations,
Oh
they
my
crumble.
God.
They
So
cry, they get upset, they freak out, they call their boyfriend, they call their father.
and then
Hang on.
punch
I'll let you
holes
go on.
through
I'll let you go
walls
on.
and
You
burn
said
down
that
parts of
ridiculous stuff.
The problem with this is that, like, in general, like, I have experienced some of these. When my wife gets stressed, she does tend to cry. But, like, Nick has never seen this before. He's never been with a woman. He doesn't understand any of these. He's never had a relationship. So he's just talking based on what other people have told him. He has no actual life experience with anything that he's saying. So
Hang on, let me finish. I'll wrap up. But I let you finish, and I let you say that women handle stress better. That's insane. Okay. And with regard to physical strength, look, I said today physical strength is not a qualifier because of technics, because we have missiles, we have tanks, and things like that.
Okay, well then that means that by that logic that if you think that that's a justifiable removal of that component, then that means that you think that women are more effective than they ever have been. What are you talking about?
The point is, it used to be the case.
He was using that as a way to dismiss women from being able to do certain things. So that was his point. But now he's like, well, actually, strength isn't really a factor because this guy is actually, if you look at him, he's pretty a muscular guy. But now Nick Fuentes has to be like, well, no, physicality doesn't matter anymore, even though it does matter to him and his philosophy when it comes to comparing to women. But now that he's being compared to another man that's obviously physically stronger than him, he has to be like, well, no, technology shores up some of these things. Okay, then if technology shores it up so that weak men like Nick Fuentes can exist, then it shores it up for women as well.
Case that would qualify you to lead is that you would go out there and be doing the fighting and all of that. And that is still true. It's not necessarily true in the United States, but it is still true in other countries. In countries like Israel, for example, or Iran, their presidents and their ministers are
That is true. Women literally give birth. It's one of the most stressful experiences of your life. That is actually a good point.
frequently military leaders that are actually having to be in the tanks and in the battlefield. And, it's hard to be in the battlefield when you get your period. It's hard
I don't think leaders are usually in the tanks, but you know what? It's just my opinion.
to be in the battlefield if you're pregnant or something like that.
Okay, well then you probably shouldn't get pregnant and go to the battlefield.
Men don't get pregnant. Men don't get their period. Men are physically stronger. Men have more endurance. That's why, by the way,
But this doesn't matter. This matters in a society where those things matter. It doesn't in our society.
not just that they're stronger, they're faster, they're all the above. That's why women don't compete with men in sports. That's why men make better soldiers. And so, yeah, it kind of does matter that if there's a war, men are going to be the ones fighting and dying in it, and that's why they're leading.
Why he's talking about leadership in a military capacity. I mean, maybe there's a level of truth to women should be or shouldn't be in there. I don't really know or care, but the majority of leadership positions in the United States are going to be at work. It's going to be your boss. It's going to be your shift manager. So nothing that he's saying matters at all. He's just talking to talk. So, cool.
leading. And there's something deeply related to their biology there as well. But go ahead, since you want to interrupt me already.
Yeah, let's do something here. I've kind of felt this way like the entire time that we've been having the discussion. I feel like we both like to talk a lot. I think that's been evidently clear. We just kind of go at each other with like these 2 to 3 minute responses. Can I ask something from you?
What is it? Depends on what it is.
I kind of want to break down each point you've brought up and demonstrate to you why it's flawed instead of just giving these long-winded responses.
You want to do a fact check?
5 minutes,
And
guys.
I want to do that point by point with our last 5 minutes. The first point about physical strength. Who would you rather vote for? A 15-year-old that can bench press 1,000 pounds or Donald Trump?
But that's not what I'm not saying that the most physically strong person should be the king.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying
What
that
are you saying?
as a category, women are not soldiers. They're not tasked with defending the country, and that is
Who gives a shit? Like, most people are working at fucking Walmart. Can a female manager be effective at Walmart? Yeah, sure. We're not talking about, this isn't the movie 300.
effectively what the king or the president is supposed to do is defend the realm.
Didn't
So it's-
Trump-
And most of these kings aren't even physically capable of doing anything. So, like, what are you talking about? In fact, historically, a lot of kings were, children of incest, and they were, like, actually fucking mentally, unfortunately, very incapable because of how much incest was, like, running through their bloodline.
Dodged
categories.
the draft 5 times?
Oh my. Okay, so are we just going to do the resistance liberal thing now? I said
No,
the
it's
United
just
States,
crazy.
technics,
Half of the
non-understanding. Are you capable
Yeah,
of understanding like a concept?
Can non-soldiers defend the country?
President Bone Spurs. We're talking about whether women should be leaders if they
I
can't
know, and
physically
you're
defend the
giving-
borders.
Okay, so you'd say the weaker you are, physically speaking, the worse you are at leading.
No.
So then what the fuck is your argument?
Yeah, it's like you're not even listening. I said
I mean, because he is listening, and what you're saying sounds stupid.
that as a category, because sex is
A category that's not going to be indicative of leadership ability. When the question is, why are men better at leading than women?
If your job is to be much more physically capable, then, like, yes, it does matter. But, like, in most leadership positions, it does not matter. That's just literally it.
Why do you
Right.
name a category where we see these general biological distinctions between men and women if it's not indicative of men being better at leading than women? I asked
Because-
you to name the specific biological differences between men and women that make
Which I
men
did.
better at leading than women. You said
Which I did.
strength was one of them, and now you're saying it's not. You're saying that emotional intelligence was
Okay.
one of them, and you conceded that women are more emotionally intelligent than men.
Didn't hear the other part.
Another point that you brought up was intelligence, specifically IQ, with the highest geniuses of the men being smarter than that of the women. I'd say there's going to be some social aspects thrown in there. I mean, if you look at like the average IQ of an Arab individual compared to a white individual at home here in the U.S., the white individual has a higher IQ. But then if you go to an Arab-dominated country in the Middle
None of these are gonna resonate with him.
East, you'll see that the Arab individual has a higher IQ. What this means is that socialization, access to opportunity, and resources can play in, right,
I mean, that makes sense.
to like your deviated IQ. So of course we'd see more men having higher IQs at the end of the spectrum compared to women, just because they have more opportunity, resources, and access to education.
Oh, it's because of
in general.
misogyny. It's misogyny, right? Women are dumb because of misogyny.
Yes, sometimes. I mean, if you're not given access to be able to go to school, then yes. I mean, like, the second we pulled out of Afghanistan, women weren't allowed to go to university anymore. So, like, the answer, like, you will become a stupid person if you don't get a formal education. It's like, I don't know. That's not a hot take. This is very basic stuff.
Well, actually,
have
I'd say
access
that
to
not.
That's why people like living in nice areas where they have formal education is better. So this isn't like a. Okay.
Being in the top 10%
Let me ask you-
IQ
let me
doesn't
ask
make
you a
I mean, Nick's entire advocation is women shouldn't be in certain spaces. So, like, yes, he understands that there is a systemic aspect of it. In fact, he supports the systemic aspect of it.
fucking dumb.
You
He
asked
doesn't think women should be leaders in any capacity. He might have offhandedly said, like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean they shouldn't have work, but he doesn't think women should be able to be leaders. So,
me
And
questions. Let me
secondly,
ask you a
I give you a reason to
question.
believe that
I want to
that's
ask you a question about leadership. What do you think are good leadership traits? Can you give me some examples of what like good leadership traits are?
it depends on the job. I mean, generally speaking, you need to be somebody that is, you need to be able to have a goal, be able to get that goal. You need to be able to work towards having that goal. You need to be able to be authoritative over other people to make sure they get the goal done based on that individual strengths and weaknesses. And you need to be empathetic enough. You need to be able to talk to certain people a certain way to get them to be more motivated and working. You do need to make tough decisions. These are all things that are indicative of a leader. You need to lead by example. You can't really be lazy and expect your workers to not also be lazy. There's a lot of different things. You don't need to be super aggressive. Sometimes you do need to, you have to make sure, you have to be able to make a decision and stand on that decision. Absolutely. But women can do that as well. So
That's a great question. I think I'll give you a great answer. We could talk about a good, morally virtuous character. We could talk about ability to get along with other people, bring people together, and get them to follow you. Another thing that I'd say, a good leader isn't just someone who could bring people together, but a good leader is also someone that can lead those people into a positive direction. The reason that leadership exists in the first place is because when you take a large group of people and you set them on their own paths, they're not going to get shit done. Thereby, you choose one of that large group of people to lead them all in what? A positive direction. So you're looking for someone with a good character. You're looking for someone that can bring people together. You're probably going to be looking for
yeah, big Pinor means good leader.
someone that's pretty damn competent as well, and someone that could like achieve like the highest level of eudaimonia for the group of people that they're leading. I'm sure there's other attributes that we can assign to leadership here, but there's going to be a general sense.
Bro, pull out eudaimonia. Look, this
Wait,
is
Nick,
where you're wrong.
Nick, let's do you need to respond, or let's do a 1 minute closing statement here?
Can I just respond and then we can do?
Sure.
closing
Yeah, go
statements? Okay. So just to respond to that, I mean, and this is kind of the whole essence of the debate.
Didn't
Is you,
Figo cut me off last time? Funny. Go ahead.
you fundamentally misunderstand human nature and you know nothing about leadership.
So just to be clear, Nick Fuentes is not a leader. He's never led anything. He's a little kid that got famous being racist and making 4chan-esque memes. He doesn't know what it means to be a leader, and he doesn't even understand leadership roles. He thinks everything is military and war and physical, but he's never worked a regular job in his entire life. That's literally what it boils down to. Like, a leader is going to be different things based on what they need to lead. It's really that simple.
Say it's about bringing everyone together to move in a positive direction.
That is an aspect of, I used to be a manager, so like, yes, this is true. Yes. Okay.
It's like, this is a problem with Gen Z. It's like this kind of
fucking
kindergartner.
nihilist.
Hang on, can I finish, please? I didn't interrupt all that nonsense. It's just sort of like, hey, everybody, let's all hold hands and let's just create, like everyone's being nice to each other. The world is a mess. Okay, the world is a
How about being nice to each other, but like, you need to give respect to people to get respect. What are you talking about?
knife fight. On the global scale, when you're talking about leaders and armies, it's
We're not talking about global scale. I don't even know if it's true that men are better leaders on a global scale, but if they are, that's fine. If men happen to be more effective on a global scale leadership-wise, maybe that is true. I don't know. I don't really care. I'm not talking about global leadership. We're talking about leaders in general. So he's being specific of global leaders. What does that matter?
a knife fight for existence. We're talking about companies, it's a knife fight for existence. We're talking about anything. Human
What company have you
competition
worked
is
for?
practically homicidal between people, and anyone that's serious about anything will tell you that. Anyone that's obsessed, anyone that's ambitious, anyone who is ruling, who is actually the leaders in society, who earn their role there, they'll tell you the same thing. It's cutthroat. And yeah, like there are some abilities, like you said, like, yeah, you need to inspire people, things like that. But more than that, you need a willingness to do what it takes. You need an ambition. You need to take risks. You need to be willing to make decisions and stand by them. These are all qualities that purely because of gender and hormones, because of their biological role, women don't have those things. Because women have to have a baby grow inside of them for 9 months and then hear it scream and cry and take care of it and feed them from their breast and have like basically a dependent. They're just not made for that kind of competition. They have a completely care-based ethics. They're totally dependent. Men.
In my experience, women don't seem to be as competitive. Women don't seem to be as motivated to push a career. I've noticed that in general. We're not talking about that. There are some women who are, and they should be able to have access to it. We're not saying that every woman, or for that matter, every man, is qualified to do everything. We're just generally talking about, are women capable of performing certain tasks? And they are. They are capable of being leaders. They're capable of all these different things.
Men who are individuals, risk takers, aggressive, men who can exist independently of women, when it's really not so the other way around. They alone have the ability to do what it takes to lead. And that's why, even with all the DEI in the world, you're
What?
still going to have men running everything. The private sector, the public sector, the military, because men are the ones that can lead. And thus,
Christ.
they do. It's only through ideologically motivated policies from human resources departments that you get women doing fucking anything other than like creating schedules and being nurses and being fucking teachers and stuff like that. That's just reality. Everyone knows it. And you
Are these like unimportant tasks to you? I'm not understanding.
could give me 100 studies. That's human nature.
Dean, responding to closing statements.
Yeah, it's funny how you're saying that you can't get women to do anything. If a woman didn't do something, you want to be sitting here having this debate.
This guy can't even get a woman to marry him. I don't really know why he's talking with any authority. I don't get it.
With me right now. But I just wanted to respond to that. You're saying men are so much better at leading than women, and I hate women because I haven't touched one since conception. Sorry, that's not what you said. You actually said, because they're not.
I touch them. I just don't. I don't have sex with them. They're not my wife.
I don't.
Well, then why aren't you married? You're 26. That's old in your sphere. You should be married already. What's going on with that?
know about that. Anyways, so
You're
the
a
question-
rapist.
I'm not gonna call
Orange
you a
man
rapist
bad.
without evidence.
Orange
anyways,
glad.
So anyway,
Glad,
no, you're good, man. What I was gonna ask, well, if like ambition, risk taking, and aggressiveness is what makes you a good leader, Hitler was an incredibly
Why? I don't really understand. I'm not understanding what this guy's goal is. I guess because like nobody in Nick's audience is going to be like, oh yeah, Nick thinks Hitler is a good guy. He must be a bad guy. They all love when he says that Hitler did nothing wrong because he's legitimately fucking like he's anti-Semitic. So this isn't really going to resonate with Nick's audience. Although maybe that's not his goal. Maybe his goal is to expose, just make him look stupid to his own audience. I don't really know. If anything, it just seems to give Nick Fuentes more screen time when people do stuff like that. So, but okay.
vicious, aggressive risk taker. Given your qualifications, would you thereby say that Hitler is a good leader?
He's going to say yes, or he's going to infer that he was, because he hates Jewish people. Like, he's anti-Semitic.
It's indisputable he is.
See?
Indisputably. You could even say he's evil. He made Germany great again.
I
Even
have
if
a
you believe
question.
he's evil.
Who would you rather have run our country right now, your wife or Hitler?
Hitler!
Yeah, this isn't going to resonate with anybody,
Of course. Of course. I don't have a wife, but if I did, she would not be fit to run the country. I could tell you that much. She can run the kitchen. She can't run the lawnmower. I'll put it that way. And I think anyone would. One's in the chat if you'd rather Hitler over your wife. Two's if you prefer your wife. We'll let the fucking numbers do the talking over here. I don't think
I guess Nico trying not to crack a smile at this because he finds it so funny.
I'm alone in that.
Okay, let's do 1 minute closing. Let's do 1 minute Nick and then 1 minute Dean. Nick, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my closing statement is that, look, it's human nature. I am not an empiricist. I don't think we need to consult the studies. I think we know.
I'm not an empiricist. I don't think that we need to consult the studies. Wow, what an interesting thing to say.
Our nature. I think God created a man and a woman. We're created with two different reproductive faculties. We're created with, as a result, different anatomies, different natures, different dispositions. We're made with complementarity. Men and women are not only made differently, they're made.
Right. That makes sense, though, that we are made with complementarity, we'll say. So if you have an entire infrastructure of male workers, wouldn't that, by your logic, mean that a female boss might be better in some circumstances because they have complementarity with each other?
Made to complement each other, which doesn't mean that they're necessarily opposites, but it does mean that there's like reciprocal differences. As a result of these essential immutable differences, we should treat men and women differently, and we do. That's why we have things like chivalry. That's why men don't hit women. That's why men and women don't compete in the same sports. And, a lot of people understand that, but then they don't understand why we would say we don't want a woman president, or why we wouldn't want to send women into combat, or why we think that men aren't badass bikers and whatever in the same way that men are. But it all proceeds from the same essential complementary natures that the two sexes were given by God.
That's not
otherwise is to ignore our eyes and our experience and what we know about ourselves and the people in our lives.
Dean, got 1 minute.
Yeah, first of all, you said that's why men don't hit women. Men do hit women. It sucks. Second of all, let's talk about why men are not better at leading than women. Every single point that Nick Fuentes has been reduced to him telling us all that Hitler is a better candidate for America's president today compared to Kamala Harris or his very own wife. I don't give a shit about the 12 or 13-year-old little boys spamming 1 in Aiden's chat. Anyone with half of a fucking brain cell can tell that this logic is not immutable, and it leads you to being a fucking incel RNC droid repeating the same alternative media talking points.
Oh, RNC, Republican National Convention, I guess?
That you got from Andrew fucking Tate. Okay, right? The facts of the matter are, this guy said men are better at leading than women because they're physically stronger. Physical strength is not indicative of being better at leading. Go talk to the biggest guy in your gym and see who would be better at leading. This guy also brought up levels of emotion. Men are more emotional than women. We all know this. That's why they commit vast majority of violent crimes. That's why they commit vast majority of suicides. That's why they abuse hard drugs more. Right?
It's about time, Dean.
EV, kidnapping, etc. more. Another point that he brought up was intelligence. Women have a higher IQ on average. Let's face the facts, folks. There's no evidence to believe that men are better at leading than women. And I suggest you treat the women in your life damn well and don't tell them to stay in the kitchen, or you're not going to get a wife.
That's fine, Dean.
28-year-old Nick Fuentes over here hasn't been able to get a girlfriend since he was born.
I don't know if my brain's been rotted. Nothing he's saying is wrong. It just comes off as so emotional. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just like a little too online brained sometimes or something. Because like some of the way that he's talking, it sounds a little. I'm going to be very I'm going to be very regressive about it. He sounds a little cucked. It sounds a little cucked. You know what I mean? It sounds like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you should respect the women in your life because they're very positive. But this sounds a little. You know what? It's probably just me. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
That's why, folks. That's why you're an incel. But we're going to go ahead and move on now.
Okay, let's go back to Trump Camel.
I think it's more the way that he's saying it. But that's just me personally. A lot of people, you guys are saying he's cooking. Good. Yeah. I mean, you know what? I think I'm just a little too edgy, and maybe some of it doesn't resonate with me as much.
I will say, who's stronger on immigration, Trump or Kamala?
Trump is definitely going to be stronger on immigration. Like, for sure. That doesn't necessarily mean he's more effective. Again, the problem with the Trump campaign is that they're saying that immigration is the number 1 problem with everything happening. The housing crisis is immigration. Inflation is because of immigration. Everything is because of immigration. And while, and specifically illegal immigration, the drug problem is illegal immigration. These are problems, and legal immigration can exacerbate them. But the reality is that the majority of these issues, like the drug problem, is because we had addictive prescription drugs being given to people without them being aware that it was addictive, and then they were turning to alternative metrics. When it comes to the housing market, it's mostly rich people and corporations buying up houses, flipping them, even though they're shitty houses that need a lot more work, or buying up land so that they can rent things out, like Airbnb, stuff like that. That has a lot to do with it. I forget what the fucking other one was. Oh, the economy. It's mostly because of like automation displacing jobs and driving down wages, and rich people being able to dictate a lot of the ways that people operate in different capacities. You have different companies like Amazon not paying any federal tax, things of that nature, a lot of tax loopholes, right? So immigration is definitely a factor, but he's trying to make it seem like it is the number 1 issue, and that's the problem. So he might be stronger on immigration, and I might like that he's strong on immigration, but his policies are also stupid. A mass deportation campaign would be dumb and bad for the economy. I think that we need to get people out of here who are here illegally. I absolutely agree, but a lot of illegal people that are here, our government or economy is dependent on it. That's why if they actually cared, if either party actually gave a shit, what they would have done is they would have said, hey, you know what, let's punish businesses for hiring illegal immigrants. They don't do that. They don't really care, right? It's really just a virtue signal at the end of the day. If you wanted to really reduce this problem, you would attack it in that capacity first.
We'll start with Dean. We'll give you let's do 2 minutes. We'll keep this one a little shorter. 2-minute intro.
Yeah, sure. Kamala Harris is stronger on immigration. Well, this one's just evidently clear. Donald Trump is pro-open borders. Why is Donald Trump pro
I mean, I'd like to hear the argument for this.
open borders? Because he torpedoed a bipartisan border bill in the House and the Senate
Well, that is a good point.
years ago, drafted by a Trump-endorsed Republican by the name of Langford. Okay? Trump is pro-open borders right now because he knows it's going to increase his chance of winning re-election.
That is a good point, sure.
Another thought here, if I was a conservative and I cared about immigration, Donald Trump wouldn't be my guy. He essentially passed no policy that effectively mitigated increasing numbers of border crossings and entries into our country under his term. The wall didn't do shit. The Remain in Mexico policy didn't do shit. If you look at the graph behind Donald Trump at the rally that he got shot at, he claimed that his clampdown on the southern border started with Title 42 and COVID. The big public health emergency that Nick Fuentes over here probably thinks was a common cold is the only reason that we had as low of border entries under Trump's administration as we did.
That's a fair point.
Kamala Harris, on the other hand, right, she wants to send more funding to the courts on the borders to expedite the asylum-seeking processes to reduce undocumented migration in our country.
Which makes sense, sure.
She's the only candidate in the race to prosecute transatlantic gangs. But the moral of the story, the one point that I want to stick for Nick Fuentes over here to respond to, is that Donald Trump is pro-open border because he torpedoed good border policy in the House and the Senate 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, because the only thing he really can run on is the border.
Because he wanted the crisis to continue.
He needs this to continue to exist so that he can fearmonger his audience.
And make the Democrats look bad.
Nick, you got 2 minutes.
All right. Yeah, that's just like obviously out of touch with reality. I knew he would go there, and that's why I want to talk about immigration. I mean, you could make that case if history started in the year 2024 that Trump torpedoed the border bill, and that's why the border is bad. But of course, time didn't.
But he did do that. So
start in 2024. It started with
he's giving us a story, guys. He's got to build this up.
Immigration a long time ago. Trump had a number of executive orders that curbed illegal border crossings. It wasn't just the migrant protection protocols. It was a number of others meant to close the loopholes with catch and release. And so they could return immigrants to third-party countries. It wasn't just Title 42.
Yes.
And the Biden administration undid all of them, literally on the first day. Trump built the border wall. You say it did nothing. Department of Homeland Security says actually it reduced crossings, reduced drug trafficking over the border, reduced human smuggling over the border. That's all true. He built 386 miles of physical infrastructure. And he did it, by the way, after Congress refused to give him the money, after the Supreme Court, or rather a federal judge, tried to hold it up in the court system. Finally, by the end of his term, he was able to get the money from the DOD to build the border wall. Biden stopped building it on day one. Biden also effectively...
Well, it's because it's been projected to not really do very much, the physical border wall. It was better to invest in border wall technologies that were less expensive and more border agents for more jobs, obviously, than it was to build physical wall that could have been like disastrous for different ecosystems. But
ended deportations. There was a policy under Obama where they said they weren't going to prioritize most illegal immigration for deportations. Under Trump, they put an executive order that said, we're going to prioritize all illegal immigrants for deportation. Biden rescinded that executive order. Trump had an executive order that...
Yeah, because it's not really smart. As much as you want to say it is, it's just not really smart.
...said while you're waiting for your asylum claim to be adjudicated, you wait in Mexico, not in the interior of the United States. Biden rescinded that executive order. Trump said, we will return you to one of the Northern Triangle countries, a third-party country. Biden rescinded that executive order. As a result, illegal immigration under Biden is higher than at any point in history by far. In the 10 years between 2010 and 2020, illegal border crossings, only 1 year on average, on a day-to-day basis, were over 3,000 per day. Under the Biden administration, it was 4,000, 6,000, and now it's over 7,000 border crossings. So it's almost 3 times the 10-year average, and that's because they removed the Trump era policies. Now they want to...
Is that border crossings or border catchings? Because I saw a statistic the other day. I think it might have been actually yesterday. I think Elon Musk put it out on Twitter where he was like, look, obviously illegal immigration is worse now because we have so many more border catchings. The border catchings are insanely high. And so my thought is like, okay, maybe it's because more people are trying to cross the border, or maybe it's because we have more infrastructure to stop people from going across the border, so we're catching more people because we have better border wall technology. I don't know which one it is, but just because we're catching more people, does that necessarily mean that the border crossing is worse, or does that mean that we have more manpower to be able to deal with this problem? I don't know. I legitimately don't know the answer to that. But I think he's referencing that statistic. He's not referencing the statistic of... I don't think he's referencing I don't really know. I don't know if he's referencing a statistic of like actual more people crossing the border or the statistic of more people getting caught crossing the border.
Want to blame it on a Senate bill this year? I don't think so.
Thank you for all the information, Nick. I'm going to have fun with this. First of all, it's funny that you think you're so educated about the border, and then you say that Langford's bill was in the Senate in 2024. No, that was 2023. It started drafting in late 2021. Secondly, you mentioned all the policies that Trump enacted that Biden repealed. First of all, if you look at the border crossings under Donald Trump's presidency, they went up year by year by year until Title 42 was implemented. What does that tell us? Immigration after these great policies didn't go down. What else do we know is that these policies weren't in place under Obama's administration. Did we have a border crisis to the same degree that we have now under Obama's administration? No, at points we had lower crossings than we had under Trump. Phenomenal. What does this tell us? Is that Biden repealing those policies didn't cause the crisis to start. So what did? That's a great question. Well, let's treat Title 42, the total and complete shutdown caused by or implemented because of the public health emergency, like a dam on a river. Okay, and that dam.
Oh, okay, that actually does make a lot of sense.
Sat
Since people couldn't come at that point, now they're able to come now. Okay.
on the river for a year and a half, 2 years, however long it was. When you remove the dam from the river, what happens? Water gushes through. When Title 42 expired, guess what? All of those migrants that had been backlogged gushed through. This was natural, normal, and expected. We should evaluate the responsibility and the efficacy of our current administration based upon their response to this crisis being caused by the revoke of Title 42. And what was their response? To implement bipartisan border legislation, and the first step they took was to influence exactly that through the House and the Senate. That was Lankford's bill. What happened next? Trump calls the Republicans in the House and the Senate, tells them to vote against it, torpedoes the bill. Nick over here knows the story. But I would like to ask you a very crystal clear question, Nick, and it is in the sense of a hypothetical. If your house is burning down and the fire truck shows up to put out the fire, and you tell the fire truck to turn around because you want the house to burn so you can claim the insurance money, Nick Fuentes, did you care about the house?
Well, it's an incorrect hypothetical because the bill would actually concretize the Biden era policies. The bill does not secure the border. So the premise fails on that alone.
But the bill was supposed to give, I think, 1,500 new border patrol agents and more technologies. What do you mean?
And the way that I'd respond to that.
Do you know? Wait, let me ask you. Do you know the details of the bill? Can you tell me the provisions that are in the bill, please?
I could tell you a handful. Like what was it? Like an additional $500 million towards the courts on the border to expedite asylum-seeking claims. Then we also had like some rolling average daily caps and weekly caps in which the president could then step in and order down. I think it was like 5,000 a day for like the weekly cap. But here's my response to that. You said that the average over the administration was like 7,000 or 9,000 a day, whatever you said it was. If you were starving and I offered you a hamburger, would you take it or would you say no? I want a bacon wrapped fillet. You take the damn hamburger. So when the border crisis is exuberantly high and we have this bipartisan border legislation that the alt-right, like Nick Fuentes, isn't happy about, any rational, sane person would take the bill to decrease the impact of the crisis.
All right, now let me respond to that now, because you went on your whole thing about, you corrected me on some of these things.
You never answered my question.
That. Well, because the premise of the question is wrong, but I'll answer it now.
You how it wasn't wrong.
You want me to answer these like false hypotheticals and syllogisms, but that's not really how a debate works, actually. If passing this bill is like putting out a fire, would you pass the bill? Okay. So first of all, you said the bill was from 2023. The bill failed in 2024, and that's because it resulted from the impasse over appropriations in September 2023. There was an impasse in Congress over 12 military appropriations bills. The deadline was October 1st. That's why Kevin McCarthy was removed, because the Freedom Caucus, specifically the MAGA caucus within it, insisted on what they were calling, I forget the name of it, but a certain border provision in the spending bill. McCarthy wouldn't go for it. And they kept passing continuing resolutions until a bipartisan agreement was put together in the Senate. But at that point, and that was in February, Mitch McConnell said, my first priority is Ukraine, because that was the other sticking point in negotiations. So the Republicans, because they wanted Ukraine aid to pass, which was another subject of the impasse, they said, fine, here's your border concessions. And I'll tell you the provisions because you don't know. It said that it would only mandate enforcement of the border when daily apprehensions hit more than 8,000 per day. Again, the average of the past 20 years is 2,000 to 3,000 per day. It would say you only have to enforce. That's what the bill says. The bill says 8,000 per day. It says that the administration can get emergency authority at 5,000 per day on average over a 7-day period. But
why do you need to get emergency authority though? How does you getting emergency authority have anything to do with overall reducing or strengthening the border? Because my understanding, again, it had like 1,500 new border agents on the border. So who cares about the specific about emergency authority? Why does it matter that they get some kind of emergency authority protocol at 8,000 apprehensions per day? That's not the only thing in the bill. So, like, okay, why do they need emergency apprehensions beforehand would be my question.
It only mandates, not a lie. It mandates enforcement at 8,000.
It's 5,000 for one day for
Excuse me, I let you finish your nonsense when you said it was in 23 when it wasn't. So you're wrong about that. It mandates it at 8,000 per day. What's more, again, the daily averages for 20 years, 20 years, was 2,000 to 3,000. Under the Biden administration, it goes up past 7,000. They want to say, well, 5,000, you get emergency powers. 8,000, you have to use emergency powers. That's far too many. And this whole argument about...
But if your argument is that it's... I'm not understanding. Wouldn't it be a good thing, though? This is emergency powers on top of being able to have more border security. This is a non-argument.
A backlog because of Title 42. 10 million illegal immigrants have come in under Biden. Title 42 is implemented. Well, when did the lockdown happen? March 2020? You think 10 million illegals were trying to get in the 9-month period between March and December of 2020? Biden undid all the policies in January 2021. So that's just like an ad hoc. You're just fishing around for an answer. With regard to the Trump administration, you can see very clearly cause and effect on immigration. When Trump was elected, illegal immigration went down because foreigners anticipated that there would be enforcement. So, and you can see throughout the history of the country, when they threaten enforcement, illegals don't come. When they think they'll get amnesty or they think they'll get in, more of them arrive. So they thought...
Oh, so this is 8 million migrant encounters nationwide, 6.7 million of which have been southern border. So this isn't 10 million illegal immigrants have come across the border. This is 6.7 million of them are encounters. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were let in. I'm just like looking at this on the side. He's trying to fearmonger.
Trump was going to be a hardliner on immigration. They didn't come. Then
he's on. There's one that says he's on track to meet 10 million before the end of the year. That was in May of 22nd, 2024. But this doesn't mean that all of them are going to get let in. So
September and October 2017, Trump floated a DACA amnesty. He said, we're going to give amnesty to all the deferred action on childhood arrivals. The reason that matters is because children being brought over the border is one of the 3 big loopholes for how illegals are caught and released into the country. They bring children that aren't there.
So apparently...
And all kinds of other things. So Trump said, we'll give an amnesty. Then all of a sudden, they started getting caravans from the Northern Triangle in the spring of 2018 because he said amnesty.
I'm trying to figure out how many we've taken in.
They heard it. They started to come. Trump maintained a zero tolerance policy promulgated then by Jeff Sessions. And they said, we're going to separate the children. We're going to treat them as unaccompanied minors. There was a huge media outcry before the election. They had to reverse it. And then after they reversed it, it exploded. And May and June 2019, they hit a peak. Trump implemented the migrant protection protocols by threatening sanctions, or rather tariffs against Mexico. And then it came down again. And that is the story of illegal immigration and Trump.
It seems to be roughly, I'm trying to look into this, it seems to be roughly 125,000 asylum seekers admitted per year, which doesn't take into account anybody that have to go through the court system. But this idea that like almost 10 million people have come across the border illegally is ridiculous. These are encounters. The majority of these are encounters. What is he talking about?
And the Biden years. It has everything to do. Hang on, it has everything to do with the Biden policies. They let in 10 million people, and then they float.
But that's not what happened. 10 million people didn't get let in. These are encounters at the border.
Out this half-ass bill.
Wait, what policy did Biden have influence?
Let me finish. They put out this half-ass bill in the last year because everyone agrees the border's a crisis. They concretize it and basically make codify in federal law Biden's policy to let 5,000 people a day on average here. And then when Republicans voted against it, they said, oh, Republicans are against border security.
That's not 5,000 people allowed per day. That's encounters. What does he talk about?
It's a political thing. Even Democrats acknowledge that it's totally fake. You know, you could keep going with it, but everyone knows it's fake.
Okay, well, apparently Trump doesn't. He said at a rally in Nevada to blame it on him if the border bill fails. So I think that Trump's big mouth actually does him a lot of harm because I just used Trump's own word of mouth to debunk Nick Fuentes supporting Trump. So yeah, see, that's the face of a losing man. And you said that you were perfectly
saying just retarded.
Okay, well, I don't appreciate your use of the slurs, but I guess that's what emotionally immature men, when someone smarter than them, lays down the truth. Isn't that right, sir?
10 minutes on the topic.
We make jokes. Men are funny. Men are funny. Women are not funny. That's another advantage, but that's the other debate.
True, I guess. I don't know.
Are you a woman?
You could call it emotionally immature.
I think he is a woman, yeah. Are you a woman? That was actually funny. Yeah, I guess so, because he's not very funny.
Sure. Oh my gosh, he said the R word. That's what happens when an emotionally immature male.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it is very immature to use that slur. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, he's right about that. Again, it's probably not really going to convince Nick Fuentes' audience of anything, but it is a very immature word to use.
Go ahead on immigration.
According to your logic. But I would like to specifically clarify that your comment about men being more funny than women was just another unfunny, false fucking comment by an immature man. I didn't find it that fucking funny.
I don't know, man. I feel that way. I'm not saying women can't be funny, but I mean, I feel like that's how men get women. You know, they got to be funny. So, again, it doesn't really matter. I mean, women can still be comedians. It's fine.
When you were telling us that the Holocaust was fake and that 6 million Jewish people didn't die, I didn't find it that fucking funny when you sat here and you told me that Trump didn't torpedo the
These arguments are just so weird. Like, okay.
border bill, even though he said he did at a rally in Nevada. If men were so much more funny than women, then why are you the most unfunny fucking specimen that I've ever had the displeasure of sitting across the damn phone with?
Why are you mad, dude? We're just having a debate. Wait, who's funnier, Trump or Kamala?
Who's funnier?
Be honest.
Trump is funnier than Kamala Harris.
Case in point.
I don't know. Some of Kamala's, some of the shit that she's got going on are kind of funny. Like some of the shit like in her social media accounts, they are a little bit funny.
Win the debate. Men funnier than women.
Oh, okay. But
you
understand the reason I'd say that Trump is funnier than Kamala Harris is because
he's a guy.
No, because he has the IQ of your fucking family pet, and he sits on Twitter all day and he rants about how much he hates Taylor Swift just because he endorsed Kamala Harris. It is funny. She endorsed Kamala Harris. It's not a funny and a haha. It's a funny and look at this guy fucking burn.
Dude, why? It's always like this diminutive. It's funny because it's sad, because you're a sad little. The president tweeted in all caps, "I hate Taylor Swift." You don't think that's funny? You don't think that's not hilarious?
Wait, the president.
I mean, not really. It's kind of pathetic, honestly. I don't see why that's funny.
Do you think that Trump won 2020?
I said the former president.
But do you think Trump won 2020?
100% he did. That's a fact.
Can you name?
That's not a fact, but okay.
In one court case that would find.
No, because they threw all the courts.
Well, does this guy know he's talking to Nick Fuentes? Did he say at the beginning he has no idea who Nick Fuentes is? These are all optical W's for him.
Threw all the cases out because they lack standing.
Okay, so is it okay believing things without evidence?
There is evidence. You asked about court cases, but
there's no evidence that Okay.
Court cases weren't lost; they were thrown out because they didn't have standing. There's a
Because they didn't have evidence.
difference.
So there's not any evidence. But there's
No, there is evidence.
So what's the
There is
evidence of the
evidence.
widespread voter fraud in 2020?
The evidence is this. Do you know how many people voted early in the 2016 election? Do you know what percentage?
It doesn't really matter because voting protocols changed drastically in 2024, 2023, whatever. What am I saying? Last election? 2020? Jesus Christ, I'm getting old. Days are going by in weird ways. Yeah, so you were allowed to vote the entire week instead of just Tuesday in the last election. And you were able to do more mail-in ballots because of COVID. So
Significantly less than in the 2020 election.
Correct. Half. 35%. And in 2020 was 70%.
Okay, so that's your evidence that Trump had the election stolen from him?
Well,
Good
hey,
God.
let me. Whoa, why so hasty? Let's just talk about it.
I'm sorry, I'm having
so
fun. I'm having
the
fun,
amount. Yeah, I can tell. The amount of early voting doubled because they changed the rules. In
Yes.
all the states, they changed
because of COVID, yes.
the rules. In Pennsylvania, North Carolina, they illegally changed the rules with state
They didn't illegally do anything.
election boards with the state Supreme Court. In Wisconsin, they changed
They illegally did it through their Supreme Court system. How is that illegal?
indefinitely confined status to mean anybody because of the pandemic. They solicited ballots. I literally got a ballot.
Yes, they extended the ballot so that more people could mail and vote because of COVID. It was a crisis. I think in America alone, 1 million people died over the course of 3 years. Like more people died. The excess mortality rate was like 3 million people or 1 million people over 3 years, I believe. Like there was a pandemic. It was a problem. They didn't want it to spread. You can sit here and pretend that it doesn't exist, but like it did. And it was a problem. So
In Illinois.
again, he didn't work through the pandemic. He doesn't really understand how negative on the ground these things were. A lot of people who don't have real jobs complained about how like it was so terrible. Like it sucked to be stuck up in there. But people who didn't work a real job are the ones denying that it was actually real because they're dumb babies that didn't have to work. A lot of people were able to stay home and not work, and that's good to not spread things. But like I worked through it. A lot of people died. I have family that died. I have friends that, well, not friends, losers really. No, I have family that died. I know people at work who passed away. I was terrible, man, and it was real. I was disinfecting buses. I was like a manager for the bus company, making sure like 200 buses got disinfected every day. That's the whole point of the job. So I was definitely more front line on it.
My uncle, who has been dead for 20 years because they were soliciting ballots. And I would just say, if you
What are you talking about?
and let me ask you this. If democracy is so sacred, which you believe, Kamala is going to protect and preserve our democracy. We're not going
Only
back.
because Trump
Well, Trump tried to Trump stormed January 6th. Like he's like what are you talking about?
tried to
Hang
overthrow
on.
it with a fake election.
But if democracy is so precious, then a ballot is a precious thing because the ballot is the currency of the election. Do you think
Sure.
that it's good practice to ship out ballots to every voter and then tell them to dump them off in a drop box in a park unsupervised for a month at any time during the day? You think that's a good way to run an election?
That's not. Nothing was dropped off for a month. What are you talking about? The ballots were collected.
Yeah, okay. I mean, then Trump
Did I
should
get COVID? Yeah, I got COVID twice. It was horrible the first time. I thought I was going to die the first time I got COVID. The second time wasn't as bad.
have voted right.
Well,
because
is it?
I
I'm
voted
asking you, is it? That's what happened.
Yeah, I think that mail-in ballots can be made secure. I understand like your immediate like response to them, saying that if I use these words in this particular way, this doesn't seem
Well,
like a
just
real
answer.
safe
I mean, do you think that's a good way to run an election?
It
Obviously
is,
not.
it is,
It's
and
obvious.
it is, and the empirics would agree with me. There's no sufficient evidence of widespread
How?
voter fraud. All the audits that were done on the outcome of the 2020 election indicated that it was a safe election in recorded U.S. history. Donald
Where
Trump
did they
went to
conduct
63 One moment. Donald Trump went to 63 hand-picked courts, with 34 of those judges being Republican appointed, 17 of those judges being appointed by himself. All 63 of those courts ruled that there was no sufficient evidence and threw it out on the basis of no standing. And then Donald Trump even tried to form his own election integrity committee and bumped millions of dollars into them to find absolutely anything. They came up with a 2000 Mules movie, which the producers admitted in fucking court that they were lying. And when he found out that he had no evidence, what did he do? He went to the DOJ with Bill Barr and tried to pressure him in to falsely announcing widespread voter fraud when there wasn't any. And if you know anything about your history, Bill Barr had to resign from the DOJ because half of the DOJ threatened to quit if he didn't. Donald Trump not only tried to rig the outcome of the 2020 election with the fake electorate plot, sending 7 different slates of fake electorates to 7 different states to cast fake votes into Congress to either be certified as real by Mike Pence or to be or to be accepted by the House if Mike Pence were to claim ignorance. But he also lied about the outcome. Your conspiracy theory that Donald Trump won has no evidence for it, and the only thing you could come up with was Pennsylvania changing their voting rules because of COVID, which, by the way, was ruled as legal by the Supreme Court.
You're just like not even listening. It was Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and basically and they all did it illegally. Basically every
They didn't do anything illegally. They all agreed to it. They used their voting powers to do so. It made sense to do.
state change rules of the election. And I would say, you're telling me, putting 70% of the voters voting early by putting them in mailboxes a month out from the election in an unsupervised drop box, you're saying that is a good idea. You're just putting words in a particular order. Look, they don't do it like that in France because we didn't do it here in America. The absentee voting.
France is how big is France? Two 213,000 square miles. Okay, how big is the USA? Okay, 3.7. Okay, 3.7 or 3.8 million square miles. Now, I am not a mathematician, but let's see. How big is New York? Okay. New York is a quarter of the size of the state of the entirety of France. Okay, so when we're having these conversations, I don't give a shit about France and what they do when they are 1/32 our size. I don't really understand. Well, France didn't do that. France is a very small country. We're massive. We have different infrastructure and different needs. We have states bigger than France. I don't, you know, so it's just like such a stupid thing to say. Let's see. The biggest state in the United States, square miles, is Alaska at 665,000. So thrice the size of France. So I don't really care about the way that they operate things in there. Texas is bigger than France at 270,000 square miles. Why do I care about what France is doing as a small country that's not even close to comparable to America? Why would I care about that?
Voting was so rare up until like 20 years ago, up until 4 years ago, because it's so prone to fraud. Obviously, when you vote in person, you got to present in certain states. Hang on, I let you just go.
Right.
You got to present your ID.
I'll say that it's not ideal to have to do mail-in ballots, but we had COVID that was killing people, so we kind of needed to do it at that point. It's not really that big of a deal. Also, it was nice that you were able to vote for 7 days a week instead of just one day. It was nice.
You receive your ballot, they watch you, you go into a room with curtains on it because there's privacy involved too. You fill it out and you submit it. It's called a chain of custody, meaning a supervisor watches the voter get their ballot, fill it out, and return it. It doesn't happen when you're doing so-called in-person absentee voting, and that's how 70% of people voted. That's a big problem. It's a big problem they changed the rules without doing it in the constitutional way. It's a big problem that those cases weren't even...
They did it in the constitutional way. They literally was passed by the Supreme Court.
Considered in the Supreme Court. It's also a big problem, by the way, they didn't do an independent ballot audit in almost any of the states.
So I'm pretty sure that the majority of people who voted did vote in person. I think it was 50%, roughly 54%. But okay.
They did one in Arizona.
False.
It was flawed.
False.
They still found...
Georgia.
Where did they conduct an independent ballot audit? Where did they conduct an independent... It wasn't independent. They did a recount.
Georgia, Idaho,
Nope.
Indiana, Kansas, Michigan, New Jersey, and
wrong.
Oklahoma.
That's
And in
just
fact,
wrong.
I knew
You're
that
just
you would
wrong.
say that
Google
this is wrong. I knew that you would
Google
say
it.
that. I knew that you would say this is wrong. Search up U.S. State Election Assistant Commission election audits across the United States. It'll give you an entire PDF.
They're not
that will
independent.
include
That's
the
the
types of
problem.
audits, the timing, the policies, the case studies, and the state-specific information indicating that yes, these were independent.
It's like you're
audits.
just not even
Feel free to
listening.
look through them.
I didn't say they didn't do audits or recounts. No, in no state other than Arizona did they conduct an independent audit of the ballots. Of course, if the same people that oversaw the fraud and were covering up the windows in the stadium in Detroit,
Yeah.
of course the state is going to cover its own ass. That's why it needs to be independent. And they didn't do it in any state, even though that's what we were asking for. And by the way, about fake electors, they're
What
not
do you mean by
fake.
independent?
Independent meaning not conducted by the state.
Oh, okay. Independent of the state. So I just want
Yes.
to clarify. So you think that Donald Trump shouldn't have went to like the 17 judges that he appointed because those weren't independent?
So now you're just
judges?
gish galloping onto something else. You said,
I
oh,
was
I was
just
ready
kidding.
for you to
Yeah,
say that. I have all this evidence. Oh, I didn't listen and you said independent. Anyway, how about judges or something? Anyway.
no, responding
Let's
to-
get back on
By the
topic,
way,
Dean.
I mean, Nick is just going to keep pushing a conspiracy theory, so there's really no way to argue against it because he has no facts for it in the first place.
Hold on. We've been going back and forth about January 6th. This topic is about immigration. Let's go to closing statements here. We'll do 1 minute from Dean and then 1 minute from Nick. So closing statements. You can bring up January 6th, but let's keep it to immigration if you can. Actually, I'll give you 90 seconds to reel it back. 90 seconds each.
About the specific ballot audits, I didn't know what you meant when you're referencing independent audits. I understand that you are now
Not listening.
referencing audits independent of the state. I asked you to define your term, and I understand that. Yeah,
because you're on ChatGPT Democrat mode.
Nick, let's give him 90 seconds. Let's give him 90 seconds and uninterrupted. Restart your time, Dean.
No, I just don't think that like an audit done by a state can automatically be discounted because you exist in a echo chamber of conspiratorial hearsay, and you start off with a basis. Trump can never lose. You move to the basis. When Trump loses, no, he didn't. And then tangent of that, you say all of these audits done by independent states are thereby null and void, and I shouldn't listen to them, nor the 63 courts. It's just conspiracy theory. That's what you are. Your mind's been rotted. Everyone agrees with me. No one agrees with you apart from Donald Trump. Not even his old VP, Mike Pence, or 44 of the 46 former cabinet members. And that needs to be pointed out. Now, closing statements about immigration specifically, was that what you asked for, Sneeko?
Yeah.
I thought it was 90 seconds each on J6 and then
Yeah,
closing
I'm down for
statements.
that. I'm down for that. I kind of like this.
Sure, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, let me
Oh, Jesus, we have another January 6th fucking conversation.
do mine now on J6. So, you know, here's the thing about the Trump election. They doubled the number of early voting. There's obvious flaws with chain of custody. Like, it just doesn't even pass a smell test. On that basis alone, you just can't take the authenticity of the election. And people say it's about, you believe Trump can never lose. I don't think that at all. I think Trump may lose in 2024. But you have to recognize that 2020 was an anomalous election. So when there is an anomaly, when every state changes how they conduct their ballot, when there's an unprecedented, the former peak of early voting was 35%. It was
You're trying to make it seem like there wasn't a justifier for the way that we changed voting. There was. It's called COVID.
70% in 2020. It was different. When something is different, you have to investigate it. That's the basis of an inquiry. Problem is, nobody wanted to investigate it. As quickly as the election happened, they wanted to shut it down. They censored people for talking about it. They didn't conduct independent ballot audits. And there was even a Time magazine piece that came out in January 2021, and it said, this is the conspiracy to shut down the election deniers. And there was like a full spectrum attack from the Democrats and the left on protesters, on people that were investigating this to prevent them from trying to decertify, trying to send on over other slates of electors. And I would point out, it is the state legislature's constitutional authority to send electors. If they throw out the election because they don't want to certify it and appoint a different slate of electors, that's their constitutional right to do so. That's just the law. And I would just say, look, if you really believe that 80 million people voted for Biden, that the 2020 election
Yes, I do.
had more voters than any election in history by far,
Yes, it makes sense. They were able to vote for the whole week and do mail-in ballots.
and it just happened to be the one where there was all mail-in ballots.
10 seconds, Nick.
There was like less than 50% mail-in ballots.
And yeah, I just think you're
Which is still a lot, but again, COVID was happening.
dumb. I mean, so that's kind of my closing statement on J6.
Let's go closing statements on immigration. Let's do 1 minute each on immigration. Go ahead, Dean.
Cool. I'm just, you could take this off my time. Well, you told me that your whole theory here is reliant on a smell test. Nick, I fucking smell bullshit. We shouldn't be relying on our intuitions and our emotions to tell us who won the 2020 election. I think that conservatives are so funny because they'll be like, listen to the science, trans women aren't women. I don't care about what you think or feel. You have XYXX chromosomes. But then sit over here and give me some bullshit smell test to dictate who won in 2020. About immigration specifically, I think it's evidently clear that Donald Trump doesn't care about the southern border, or else he wouldn't have torpedoed the bipartisan border bill in the House and the Senate 2 years ago. I think that it's evidently clear that he's not about getting shit done. He's repeating the same Republican tagline that every Republican in the last 20 years has with quote unquote deport them all. My question to you would be, why didn't Bush? They can't do it. It's practically infeasible. I say that we deport all violent undocumented migrants and then give the rest a pathway to residency and citizenship, fix our southern border, make it faster, make it quicker, and make it safer, and then crack down further on undocumented migration when our legal systems are up to par.
10 seconds,
Instead, either deport them all, right? Get rid of 1.7
What are you talking about? Is there something wrong with my computer or something? What's happening?
trillion dollars from our economy over the next 10 years. You don't care about
Oh, your stream is lag. Oh, my stream is lagging? Whatever.
debt. You don't care about the state of the economy. You don't care about the workers in the economy. All that you care about is spewing your fucking prejudice. You're doing the same thing with undocumented migrants now that you did with gay people and women 30 minutes ago. Take it away.
What would happen? Did my stream crash or something?
Closing statement, Nick. 1 minute.
Basket of deplorables, right? It was just a basket of deplorables.
Sorry
With
for
regard to
the
immigration,
change
everybody
voting.
knows
For
Biden
what?
threw open the border. He rescinded every Trump executive order on
What's wrong with that? I feel like the stream's not really going that bad. Let's continue. Let's continue.
immigration. He stopped construction of the wall. He effectively stopped deportations. And guess what happens? You get a lot of people. You get 10 million illegals in 4 years. That's insane.
Here again, we didn't get 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. That was 10 million encounters, border encounters. So
10 million people in 4 years from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Africa, we don't even know who they are. The people that are coming here, they don't buy
then that doesn't mean that we're letting all of them in.
healthcare.
specifically.
They don't have a high school education. They have no resources. They're a massive drain on the economy. When they need healthcare, they go to the emergency room. They send their kids to public schools. It's a huge drain. And many states are eligible for SNAP. They're eligible for other benefits, and they work low wages. Because they're not educated, they work low skill, low paying jobs. They will never in a million years, maybe in a million, but they won't pay off in taxes what they receive in services.
Who cares? I don't care about that part. As long as I would prefer people here legally, but I mean, welfare programs aren't to have people pay them off. It's to keep people alive and have like a floor in case you get fucked. Thank you for the small gut from Sun Wukong. Thank you.
It's a big fiscal impact. They're in many cases they're criminals. They don't show
10 seconds,
culture.
Nick.
They're low IQ. And we can. I mean, it's just obvious that this border bill thing was an ass-saving move. They poison pilled it with a bunch of nonsense so that they could blame it on Trump. But we all know the reality, and it's wrecking our country.
Okay, thank you. That was
So immigration is a problem. Illegal immigration is a problem. It's not even close to our number one problem in the United States. It's an issue, but
5 topics. I think this was a good spirited debate overall. I appreciate both of your time. Aiden, do you have any thoughts?
You guys were, I would say about 90% of it, you guys respected, each other's time speaking and stuff, and it was awesome. It was great conversations, great defense, great offense. It's the first time I've ever done one of these, and it felt really, really cool. I'm definitely do more of this. How do you guys feel? We'll start with you, Dean. Like, how would you feel overall about this debate?
Yeah,
oh, is it over? Damn, I streamlined right at the end of this.
I mean, like, you got a little bit of echo there.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, dude, you're all good. I mean, I think overall, like, I'll first just kind of give my thoughts about, just having the debate on your platform. I think that was like really, really, really cool. I like the idea of exposing more people to what I believe in and why. I ultimately think if everyone thought like me, the world would be better off. And you kind of gave me more of an opportunity to achieve that. All things considered, it's good to have, like a conversation about why people disagree. These conversations need to be held more. I'd say that you're overall doing a good thing here. I think that I did pretty well as well. Nick, specifically to you, I think for a lot of it, you're a pretty disingenuous debater, but I'll keep my personal qualms to myself. I appreciate you for the conversation over the course of the last hour and a half. And then Aiden, maybe here at the end, I wanted to throw my socials out there for all the people in chat that may want them after watching the debate, but I'll
You should have threw him out in the beginning, honestly.
leave that off until later.
Cool. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate that, Dean. All right, and what about you, Nick? What would you like to say to the people and last words to Dean? Go ahead.
Well, thanks for having me on. I thought it was a lot of fun. Good. It's very informative. People get to learn about the topics. That's how you learn about an issue. You know, you have to hear both sides. That wasn't nice. I don't think I was disingenuous. I'm funny, okay, and I'm a little sarcastic sometimes.
He's not really funny. Like this is the thing is I do edgy humor on a daily basis, and I'm successful with it on different platforms. He's just not funny. Everything is just like legitimate racism. It's not funny. Racist jokes can be funny. Bigoted jokes can be funny. I like to think I do them well, but this guy's not funny. Like, he just says edgy things for the sake of being edgy. There's nothing intelligent about what he's saying or interesting. It's just like, haha, guys, and then he makes a joke about how he liked Hitler. He's just a fucking loser.
Sometimes, but I think it's pretty clear to differentiate. You know, I think he's a young guy. Fundamentally, I think a lot of the partisan debates are they're too shallow. I think that we all kind of go through a phase when we're young, and not to like son you, I'm unk status now, but like we all go through a phase.
You're 26. You're still young. You have no idea what you're talking about, and you're spouting the same ideas that you were when you weren't 26. So when you were like a kid. So none of these really matter.
When we're teenagers, we're precocious, have a political disposition, and you know we kind of rush for like, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. The Republicans are good, the Democrats are bad. The reality of politics is that Democrats and Republicans are really on the same side, and Republicans are one wing, and they're meant to create the illusion of opposition or dynamism where there really isn't any. And the personnel and the policies turn over from one administration to the next with very little difference. And I think that's even largely true in this election. And people get caught up in rhetoric and these appeals to emotion, slogans. People have to really follow the money. They need to look at things like imports and exports.
Following the money is it's an anti-Jewish dog whistle, just to be clear. That's what he's saying.
They need to look at energy. They need to look at institutional capture. That's where you really discern the truth. So these kinds of intramural debates are fun. We go back and forth.
Jesus Christ. He's saying follow the money because he wants you to start thinking that everything is the Jews' fault. Just to be clear, that's what he means when he says that. I've seen enough Nick Fuentes to know.
But it's so much deeper. It's such a complex subject. But it's good that people are interested in it, and I appreciate Dean for coming on. I hope that he keeps reading, keep learning. You know, in 10 years, I guarantee you have a totally different viewpoint. Maybe you're still left-wing, but you'll have a different viewpoint for sure. I heard that when I was young. I didn't believe it, and then it was true.
Wow, you're saying that as you get older, you get a little more refined on your takes? Holy shit.
Only became more right-wing. But you have to have that curiosity.
I was a
I'm sure
Trump
you will.
supporter when I was 16.
Well, it makes sense that Nick would go more right wing. He's like a beta male. He's a small, short, weak person that thinks that immigrants are taking his jobs because he's incapable of working. He's the kind of guy that needs racism to exist so that he can get a job. He needs other groups to be pushed out because he is a low class, low testosterone male.
I'm sure you will.
Well,
yeah, so I thought it was great.
Wait, sorry, did you cut off? You said you were a Trump supporter when you were 16?
Oh, dude, I used to be a vehement Trump supporter. Like Aiden, I was like big Trump fan, like Andrew Tate guy. I was like all of that shit. You know, we could delve into the reasons why not super necessary for the live, but I guess like the point is the only reason I brought that up is because seemingly I've had a more progressive trend the more that I've matured.
I gotcha. Okay.
Well, you can ask him about a previous debate that Nick had on Twitch.
Nick, I'm gonna ask you too, Dean, about something as well. Nick, did you previously debate Hassan Abi on Twitch?
I did, yes.
And someone told me that resulted in you getting banned on Twitch?
Yeah, that was the reason for my ban. Destiny Mass reported me because he was on the debate as well.
Or maybe you were just saying anti-Semitic shit.
Who won the debate in the people's eyes?
Me. Well, it was me and Sargon of Akkad. Remember him? It was me.
Oh, yeah. Fucking morons.
Me and him, we won.
How did I do compared to Destiny?
Not as well. But Destiny is probably your top guy, I think.
Well, hey, let me...
Destiny's definitely the top debater. Yes, I mean...
Nick, I'm gonna Dean, I'll be real, man. You're 1920. Like, you're probably like the best well-spoken 19-20-year-old debater I've ever heard. And I look, and I fucking... No.
True. He's
seriously,
pretty, he is a pretty smart guy.
With everything, it doesn't matter. But still, me and Sneaker are sitting here muted watching. You have a lot of great points. You have a lot of good discussions. You know, a lot of good counters. But I mean, but Nick, go ahead. What do you think about him overall as a debater?
What is up with this? I can't even like.
You know, I think it's.
I can't even look at the menu to scroll. I hate.
I think on a technical level, the rhetoric is effective at debating. I hate rhetoric. There was too much.
That's all Nick is rhetoric.
Like sloganeering in there and kind of like cheap turns of phrase that like, oh, you think that doesn't pass the smell test? This doesn't pass. Those like cheap turns of phrase. I think that's what they are. I think they're cheap.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, there's really nothing else. They're just kind of jerking each other off. Nick is pretending that he's intelligent. He's a dumb fuck. I'm not really interested in continuing watching this anymore. Yeah, Nick is a stupid, racist, anti-Semitic person. He's not funny. There's really nothing going for him. He's pathetic. He's a beta male. And that's pretty much it. I don't know what else to tell you, dude. Here's what I'll tell you. There you go, dude. Anyway, enough of this. It's fucking boring. The end of the conversation. Obviously, Dean won. You know, the only issue is that like some of the shit that he said doesn't gonna really signal anything to Nick Fuentes' audience. His entire idea is to go on to other people's streams that seem reasonable, and then try to pull people over so they expose them to like his absolutely insane takes, like having sex with black people is the same as having sex with dogs. So this is something he legitimately believes because he's a fucking loser. So.